You don't deserve any of this, my mother-in-law, Sarah, shouted as she threw all my clothes, cosmetics, bags, shoes, and accessories into a pile. She stood with her back to the empty closet, staring up. You married into my family, right? And yet you keep wearing all these fancy clothes. How many times have I told you to dress more modestly? You need to be punished, she continued. Take off your clothes and kneel on the floor in just your underwear. I didn't have a choice, so I took off my clothes and knelt on the cold floor, shivering, as she yelled at me, her face red with anger. I was about to apologize when I heard a voice from the door. I'm home. What? My father-in-law, Mark, had unexpectedly come home early. He saw me kneeling in my underwear and stared in shock. What's going on here? He asked, his voice full of disbelief. Mark turned to Sarah, shaking his head in disbelief, and shouted at her. My name is Emma, I'm 35 years old and a housewife. My husband, Ben, and I live in a rented apartment on the outskirts of the city. I met him through a mutual friend 5 years ago, and we dated for a while, broke up, but then got back together and got married last year. He's 2 years older than me and has a job that requires him to travel often, sometimes being gone for half the month. I had planned to keep working after our marriage, but Ben really wanted me to stay home. I love fashion and beauty, as I used to work in the fashion industry. Even though I don't work anymore, I still enjoy researching styles and creating new looks that fit my age. Dressing up makes me happy, boosts my mood, and gives me confidence. Before we got married, Ben used to praise me for my style. He'd always notice when I wore something new or changed my hairstyle, and I loved how kind and attentive he was. His parents were also nice to me. We lived in the same neighborhood and would occasionally have dinner or go on trips together. They were always considerate of us as newlyweds, giving us space, but also being supportive. I got married later than my friends, but I was happy with the family I married into. One day, both Ben's parents got sick at the same time. They said it was just a cold, but since they were over 70, I worried it might be something worse. I wasn't the only one concerned, Ben was too. So, I started going back and forth between our place and theirs to help them get better. I'm really sorry for the trouble, they told me. It must be exhausting for you to take care of us with everything else you have to do. Don't worry about it, I replied. Ben and I just want you both to feel better soon. It's not a problem at all. It was no trouble at all. Their house was only a 10-minute walk away, and I just made extra food when I was preparing dinner for Ben and me. You're so kind and reliable, Ben's dad said. It would be perfect if you and Ben moved in with us. Sarah, his wife, quickly scolded him. Don't say things like that. They just got married. Of course, they want to live alone, right, Emma? I was put on the spot, but I smiled and didn't say much. While I didn't love the idea, I didn't mind it either. I had lost my parents when I was young and had been raised by my grandparents. So, I longed for a family connection. If living with Ben's parents made them feel more secure, I was open to the idea. When Ben came home that night, I brought up the idea of moving in with his parents. To my surprise, he agreed right away. I think it's a great idea, he said. They're getting older, and it'll put my mind at ease knowing you're with them. I also worry about you being alone when I'm away. If the three of you are together, I won't have to worry. The next day, we made plans to move. When we told Ben's parents, they were thrilled. They quickly prepared a room for us and made sure everything was ready for our move. We planned to move in after our lease ended in a month. That month passed quickly, and I said goodbye to my neighbors. Welcome, Emma and Ben. We're so happy to have you here. Ben's parents greeted us on moving day. Thank you, Sarah and Mark. I'm happy to help with anything you need, I said. Ben added, and I'll do my best to help out too. Oh, by the way, I have a business trip in a couple of days. It'll be for 3 weeks this time. So, take care of Emma, Mom. We decided to celebrate our first day together with pizza and wine, and it was a great start. A few days later, Ben left for his trip. Normally, I'd feel lonely when he was away, but this time, I wasn't alone, his parents were with me. I decided to get to work right away and started doing my chores enthusiastically. I ran the washing machine first and vacuumed the floors. Just then, Sarah came home, while Mark was in his room reading a book. Hi, Sarah, how's it going? After I finish with the laundry, I'll make some lunch. What would you like to eat? I asked. Sarah looked around the room, then spoke up. Emma, this cleaning isn't good enough. You're a housewife, so you can't be lazy. If you can't do better, you're a failure. I was shocked by her harsh tone. I had never heard her speak like that before, and I didn't know what to say. She gave me a disappointed look and then sat on the sofa to watch TV. After that, her behavior completely changed. She started watching how I cooked and cleaned, criticizing me with every little thing. She lectured me on her idea of what a wife should be like. Her usually kind and warm personality became tense and intimidating. I thought I might have upset her, but when Mark was around, she went back to being sweet again. I noticed she changed depending on who was around, which made me suspect she was bullying me. My suspicions were confirmed one morning. I woke up, opened my closet, and realized a few of my favorite dresses were missing, along with a bunch of makeup I always used. I always kept them in the same place, and I had never taken them anywhere else. When I asked Sarah if she had seen them, she gave me a shocking answer. "Sarah, have you seen my dresses and makeup? They're gone." "Oh, yes, I threw them all away, and I sold some of your accessories too. I only got a couple of bucks for them though. Do you have a problem with that? Why did you do that without asking me?" I asked, upset. She just shook her head and gave me a cold stare. "You're just a housewife here. You don't need to care about fashion. You shouldn't wear those flashy clothes. You need to dress more modestly, understood?" she snapped. "Now go make breakfast," she ordered, before walking out of the room. Those dresses were my favorite ones I bought with my own money when I was single. It was hard to get over losing them, but I had to live with her for a long time, so I decided to just play along. I changed into the plainest shirt and jeans I had and went to the kitchen to make breakfast. Sarah nodded in approval when she saw me. From that day, she started giving me more tasks to do, like taking care of the garden, washing the car, and going shopping with her. I didn't mind helping, but the way she treated me made it hard. I felt frustrated and annoyed. I decided to play along and pretend to obey Sarah, but secretly, I used my savings to buy new clothes and cosmetics from my favorite brand, knowing that Sarah would throw them away again if she found them. I hid everything in a box under the bed. It had been 3 weeks since Mark left, and he was finally coming home that night. I was so excited and decided to pick him up from the station and go for dinner. I asked Sarah for permission. "Is it okay if Mark and I go out for dinner tonight? Should I prepare something for you before I go?" I asked. "That's a good idea. You should go. No need to make anything for me. It'd be nice to have something other than your cooking once in a while," she said. There was a hint of sarcasm in her voice, but I was still happy that she agreed. I quickly got ready, as it had been a while since we had a date night. I wore a new dress I had bought just for this occasion. I was excited and ready to leave, making sure Sarah didn't see me. I hadn't heard Mark's voice, so I figured he was out eating. I was thrilled as I headed to the station to meet Mark. When I saw him in the crowd, I waved to get his attention. He came running over and smiled at me. It made me so happy when he complimented my new outfit like he used to do. "Hi, honey, how was your trip? What do you want for dinner?" I asked. But then his face dropped, and he seemed upset. "What on earth are you wearing?" he asked, frowning. "I bought it recently. Don't you like it?" I said, excited about my dress, but he didn't seem pleased. "I'm asking why you're dressed like that. Didn't my mom tell you to dress modestly? She said you're just a housewife, so act like one," he yelled. I was taken aback. "But you used to compliment my outfits before we were married," I said, confused. Mark sighed in frustration. "That was before. Now you're my wife. Things are different now. You married into my family, so you need to act and look like it," he said. I realized then that Sarah had thrown out my clothes at his request. I still didn't understand why, but I saw now that her behavior had a reason. Feeling upset, I stayed quiet, and he grabbed my arm. "Let's go home. We need to talk about how a wife should behave," he said. I didn't want to cause a scene in public, so I followed him quietly. I briefly thought about leaving, but I didn't have a job, and the money I had saved wouldn't be enough to support me, so I decided to wait it out. We drove home in silence. When we got there, Sarah was in the living room holding a big blue garbage bag. I saw that it was full of my clothes, makeup, shoes, and accessories. I ran to my closet, but it was completely empty. My new clothes I had hidden were gone too. Even my shoes were missing. "I can't trust you," Sarah said coldly. "This is a punishment for not obeying us. You can't dress like that anymore. Just wear your underwear." That was too much. I couldn't accept it. In a burst of anger, I grabbed the garbage bag from Sarah's hands. Mark yelled at me in rage. "Hey, don't be rough with her. Who's paying for everything here? If you keep this up, I'll kick you out," he shouted. I had no words to reply. It was true that Mark took care of me, but Sarah had gone too far. Take all your clothes off and get on your knees. If you apologize, we'll go easy on you, Mark ordered. I didn't have any other choice. I reluctantly took off my clothes and knelt down on the cold floor. As I was about to apologize, Mark's brother, Luke, came home early. He froze when he saw the situation and asked, "Rachel, why are you almost naked?" "Because I don't deserve clothes," I said, not knowing what else to say. Luke looked confused. "What? You know she's my wife. She needs to learn her place. Those fancy clothes are a problem," Mark said. "That's enough," Luke said loudly. He covered me with his jacket and stood up to defend me, blocking me from Sarah and Mark. "What do you think you're doing? This isn't a lesson in life. It's abuse. I'm done with both of you. I want a divorce from you too. Josh, don't ever come back here," Luke shouted. Both Sarah and Mark were shocked. They thought Luke would side with them, but they were wrong. "Why divorce? No, please don't leave me. I don't know how to live without you. I'm sorry, I'll never do it again. Please forgive me," Josh begged. "Dad, do you really want to break up our family? Please, I'll apologize," Sarah added. Luke shook his head in disgust. "You're apologizing to the wrong person," he said, before turning to me. Both Sarah and Mark knelt in front of me, apologizing. I wasn't sure I could forgive them, even if I can't make a living on my own. "Living with you is 100 times worse," I said. They both started to panic, saying, "Oh no," but with Luke's help, I was able to file for a divorce. He even offered me financial support, which I initially refused, but eventually accepted when he insisted. In the end, Luke and Sarah also divorced, and they sold the house. Luke planned to move to a rural area and live peacefully. Sarah was left without anything. She tried to move in with Josh, but Luke didn't allow it. Thinking they might team up to cause more trouble, Sarah turned to her relatives, but her abusive behavior had become known, and they didn't want anything to do with her. Now, she lives alone, working day by day in a small apartment. It must be hard for her after living a comfortable life. As for Josh, who was disowned by Luke, he started looking for a new wife. This time, he tried to teach every woman he met how a wife should dress, but no one was interested. He now lives alone, only going between work and home. No woman will ever accept his way of thinking. I wondered when he would realize that. With the money Luke gave me, I moved far away and found a similar job to the one I used to have. It's not a luxurious life, but I'm happy. Now I dress the way I want. With money I earned myself. I'm free and won't let anyone control my life again.
The shrill ring of the telephone pierced through our peaceful Sunday afternoon like a knife. I froze, wooden spoon suspended over the simmering pot of chili, my heart suddenly racing. Something in me knew this call would change everything. "Rebecca, honey, can you get that?" Ethan called from the living room, his voice muffled by the football game blaring on TV. I wiped my hands on my apron and rushed to answer. "Hello? Rebecca?" It was Clara, my mother-in-law, her voice tight with worry. "It's Benjamin. He's fallen and broken his hip. We're at the hospital now." My stomach dropped. "Oh no, is he okay? What happened?" As Clara filled me in on the details, I caught Ethan's eye. He must have sensed the tension in my voice because he muted the TV and came to stand beside me, his brow furrowed in concern. "What's going on?" he mouthed. I held up a finger, listening intently as Clara continued. "The doctors say he'll need surgery, and then, well, he can't live alone anymore. We need to figure something out." "Of course," I said, my mind already racing. "We'll be there as soon as we can. Which hospital?" After jotting down the details, I hung up and turned to Ethan. "It's your grandfather. He's broken his hip." Ethan's face fell. "Damn, is he okay?" I quickly relayed what Clara had told me. As I spoke, I could see the wheels turning in Ethan's head, probably already calculating how this would impact our lives. "We should go to the hospital," I said, already moving to turn off the stove. "Can you call your sister? I'll get the kids ready." Ethan nodded, reaching for his phone. "Yeah, I'll let Sarah know. She'll probably want to meet us there." Within 20 minutes, we were in the car, our two children, Emma and Jack, unusually quiet in the back seat. As we drove, I couldn't shake the feeling that our lives were about to change dramatically. At the hospital, we found Clara pacing in the waiting room, her normally perfectly coiffed hair disheveled. Sarah arrived moments after us, her husband Tom in tow. "How is he?" Ethan asked, embracing his mother. Clara sighed heavily. "They've taken him into surgery. The doctor said it went well, but..." She trailed off, her eyes filling with tears. I stepped forward, putting a comforting hand on her arm. "But what, Clara? He can't go back to living alone," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "He's going to need full-time care, at least for a while." The weight of her words settled over us like a heavy blanket. I glanced at Ethan, seeing the same realization dawning in his eyes. Our lives were about to become much more complicated. "We'll figure it out," I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "We're family. That's what we do." Sarah nodded in agreement, but I couldn't help noticing the flicker of unease that passed between her and Tom. I pushed the thought aside, focusing on the present moment. As we settled in to wait for news, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that this was just the beginning. Benjamin had always been a strong, independent man. How would he handle this sudden loss of freedom? And how would we, as a family, cope with the challenges ahead? Little did I know, as I sat there in that sterile hospital waiting room surrounded by my family, that this was only the first tremor in what would become an earthquake, shaking the very foundations of our lives. The real test was yet to come, and it would push us all to our limits, revealing truths about ourselves and each other that we never could have imagined. The crash of shattering glass jolted me from my sleep. I bolted upright, heart pounding, and fumbled for my robe. Ethan stirred beside me, mumbling groggily. "What was that?" "I'll check," I whispered, already padding down the hallway towards Benjamin's room. I found him standing amidst a sea of broken china, his face flushed with anger. "This blasted tea set," he bellowed. "It's completely useless." "Grandpa Ben," I said softly, trying to calm him. "What's wrong? Why are you up so late?" His eyes, sharp despite the hour, fixed on me. "I wanted tea, Rebecca. Is that a crime now? But this ridiculous china you insist on using, it's too delicate for a man's hands." I bit back a sigh. It was the china his late wife had cherished, but I didn't dare remind him of that now. "Let me clean this up, and I'll make you some tea in a sturdier mug, okay?" As I swept up the shards, Benjamin launched into a lecture. In my day, we knew how to make things that lasted, not like this flimsy modern junk. And while we're at it, your entire household could use an overhaul. The way you run things, it's all wrong. I gritted my teeth, reminding myself that his frustration wasn't really about the teacup. It had been 3 weeks since he'd moved in with us, and each day brought new challenges. The once stern but fair man I'd known had become a cantankerous shadow of himself, lashing out at everyone and everything. "I appreciate your input, Grandpa Ben," I said, forcing a smile. "How about we discuss some changes over breakfast tomorrow?" He harumphed, but seemed it slightly. "Fine, but I expect you to listen, Rebecca. There's wisdom in these old bones, whether you young folks want to hear it or not." As I tucked him back into bed, I couldn't help but wonder if there really was some hidden wisdom beneath his harsh words. The rest of the family had grown increasingly impatient with his outbursts, but something told me to keep digging. The next morning, over a breakfast of sturdy mugs and Benjamin's favorite oatmeal, he began his critique. "Your children, Rebecca, they need more discipline. In my day, we knew how to raise respectful youngsters." I saw Ethan's jaw clench from across the table, but I placed a calming hand on his arm. "What do you suggest, Grandpa Ben?" For the next hour, Benjamin expounded on everything from our parenting style to our choice of curtains. Some of it was outdated, even offensive, but buried within the rants were nuggets of genuine insight. "You're too soft on them," he growled. "But at least you listen. Unlike some people." His eyes darted to Ethan, who was pointedly ignoring the conversation. As Benjamin continued, I noticed Clara hovering in the doorway, her expression a mix of exasperation and guilt. She caught my eye and quickly retreated, leaving me to wonder about the growing divide I sensed in the family. Later that afternoon, as I was folding laundry, Ethan cornered me in our bedroom. "How can you stand it?" he demanded. "He's impossible." I sighed, setting down a half-folded shirt. "He's struggling, Ethan. This isn't easy for him either." "But the way he talks to you, to all of us, it's not right, Rebecca." I met his gaze steadily. "There's more to it than that, if we just listen." Ethan threw up his hands. "Listen? To what? More complaints and insults? You're being naive, Rebecca. He's not going to change." As he stormed out, I felt a heaviness settle in my chest. The rift I'd sensed was widening, not just between Benjamin and the family, but between Ethan and me. That night, as I lay awake, Benjamin's words echoed in my mind. Beneath the harshness, I'd sensed a desperate need to be heard, to still feel valuable. While the others saw only the prickly exterior, I was beginning to glimpse the vulnerable man underneath. I made a silent vow then. I would keep trying to understand, to find the wisdom hidden in Benjamin's words. Even if it meant standing alone against the tide of family frustration, I wouldn't give up on him. Little did I know, this decision would set in motion a chain of events that would change all our lives forever. I never meant to eavesdrop, but the hushed voices drifting from the kitchen stopped me in my tracks. Clara's unmistakable laugh, tinged with a hint of bitterness, made me pause outside the door. I swear, if I have to listen to Dad complain one more time about how we don't do things the right way, I might just wish him away myself. My breath caught in my throat. I knew Benjamin had been difficult, but to hear Clara speak so callously about her own father. Then came the sound that truly broke my heart. Ethan's deep chuckle joining his mother's laughter. Maybe we could accidentally book him on a one-way cruise, Ethan joked. Think he'd notice if we didn't pick him up at the port? I couldn't bear to hear any more. I burst into the kitchen, my face flushed with anger and disappointment. How can you two talk like that? I demanded, my voice shaking. Clara and Ethan jumped, guilt flashing across their faces before quickly morphing into defensive irritation. Oh, Rebecca, Clara sighed, rolling her eyes. We were just letting off some steam? You know how Dad can be. I turned to Ethan, hoping to see some remorse in his eyes, but found only annoyance. It was just a joke, Becca. Lighten up. A joke? I repeated, incredulous. Your grandfather is struggling, Ethan. He needs our support, not this. Ethan's jaw clenched. You don't get it, do you? He's making everyone miserable. The kids are walking on eggshells. I can barely stand to be in my own home, and you're just enabling him. Enabling? I shot back. I'm trying to understand him, to help him adjust. He's family, Ethan. We can't just wish him away because it's inconvenient. Clara stepped between us, her hands raised placatingly. Now, let's not fight. Rebecca, dear, I know you mean well, but you have to admit Dad's behavior is wearing on all of us. I shook my head, feeling suddenly very alone. I can't believe what I'm hearing. He raised you, Clara. And Ethan, he's your grandfather. How can you be so callous? Ethan's eyes flashed with anger. Don't you dare judge us, Rebecca. You're not the one who grew up with his constant criticism, his impossible standards. You don't know what it's like. I know what it's like to care for someone who needs help, I retorted, even when it's hard, even when they push you away. The kitchen fell silent, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Clara busied herself with the dishes, clearly uncomfortable, while Ethan and I stared each other down. Finally, Ethan spoke, his voice low and controlled. You think you're so noble, don't you? Saint Rebecca always doing the right thing. Well, let me tell you something. The rest of us are human. We get tired, we get frustrated, and sometimes, yes, we joke about things to cope. If you can't handle that, maybe you're the one with the problem. His words hit me like a physical blow. I stumbled back, tears pricking at my eyes. I can't believe you just said that to me, I whispered. Before either of them could respond, I turned and fled the kitchen. As I ran up the stairs, I could hear Benjamin's gruff voice calling out, asking what all the commotion was about. In our bedroom, I sank onto the bed, my mind reeling. How had things gotten so bad so quickly? The loving family I thought I knew seemed to be crumbling before my eyes. As I sat there trying to make sense of it all, a terrible realization dawned on me. The discord I'd sensed wasn't just about Benjamin. It was about me, too. Somehow, in trying to do what I thought was right, I'd placed myself on the outside of my own family. A soft knock at the door made me look up. It was Emma, our daughter, her young face creased with worry. Mom? Are you okay? I heard yelling. I forced a smile, patting the bed beside me. As Emma curled up next to me, I held her close, suddenly fiercely grateful for her presence. Whatever was happening with Ethan and his family, I knew one thing for certain. I would do whatever it took to protect my children from the growing storm. Little did I know, the true test of my resolve was yet to come. The hushed voices coming from the living room made my skin prickle. I paused at the bottom of the stairs, my hand gripping the banister as I strained to hear. It was Ethan, Clara, and Sarah, Ethan's sister. A family meeting, and I hadn't been invited. "We can't go on like this," Sarah was saying, her voice tight with frustration. "It's tearing us apart." "I know," Ethan sighed, "but what can we do? We can't just abandon Grandpa." Clara's voice cut in, sharp and decisive. "We're not abandoning him. We're reallocating resources." My heart began to race. What were they planning? "Rebecca seems to have everything under control," Clara continued. "She's always so insistent on doing things her way. Well, let her." "Mom," Ethan protested weakly, but Clara steamrolled on. "I'm telling you, it's for the best. We'll move out, give them space. Rebecca can handle Grandpa, and we can all get our lives back." The silence that followed was deafening. I waited, breath held, for Ethan to object, to stand up for our family. But when he finally spoke, his words shattered my world. "Maybe you're right," he said softly. "Maybe it is for the best." I stumbled back, my vision blurring with tears. How could they? How could Ethan? Before I could confront them, Benjamin's gruff voice called out from upstairs. "Rebecca, where's my tea?" Wiping my eyes, I hurried to the kitchen, my mind reeling. As I prepared Benjamin's tea with shaking hands, I tried to make sense of what I'd heard. They were planning to leave us, to leave me, alone with Benjamin. The betrayal cut deep, but beneath the pain, a spark of determination ignited. I carried the tea upstairs, my resolve strengthening with each step. If they thought they could just walk away, they had another thing coming. "About time," Benjamin grumbled as I entered his room. But his scowl softened slightly as he saw my face. "What's wrong with you? You look like you've seen a ghost." For a moment I considered telling him everything, but the stubborn set of his jaw, so like Ethan's, made me hesitate. Instead, I forced a smile. "It's nothing, Grandpa Ben, just a long day." He harumphed, but his eyes narrowed suspiciously. "Don't lie to me, girl. I may be old, but I'm not blind. Something's eating at you." I sank into the chair beside his bed, suddenly exhausted. It's Ethan and the others. They're talking about moving out, leaving us to care for you alone." I expected anger, perhaps another lecture about family loyalty. Instead, Benjamin's face crumpled, a vulnerability I'd never seen before shining through. "I see," he said softly. "Can't say I blame them. I haven't exactly been easy to live with." His admission stunned me. "Grandpa Ben," he waved me off. "Don't coddle me, Rebecca. I know what I've been like, but you—" He reached out, his gnarled hand grasping mine. "You've stood by me even when I didn't deserve it. Why?" The question caught me off guard. Why had I? Because I believe there's more to you than just the grumpy old man act. Because family means something to me. And because sometimes the people who push us away are the ones who need us most. Benjamin's eyes glistened with unshed tears. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, with a deep breath, he squeezed my hand. "You're a good woman, Rebecca. Better than this family deserves, maybe. So what are you going to do about those cowards downstairs?" His question ignited the spark of determination in me once more. What was I going to do? I stood, squaring my shoulders. "I'm going to fight for this family, Grandpa Ben. All of it, even the parts that don't think they want to be fought for." As I left his room, I heard him chuckle. "That's my girl," he murmured. Descending the stairs, I steeled myself for the confrontation to come. They thought they could just decide our fate without me. They were about to learn how wrong they were. This wasn't just about Benjamin anymore. It was about the very foundation of our family, and I wasn't going down without a fight. The day Ethan left was the day I truly understood the meaning of heartbreak. I stood in the doorway, watching him load the last of his bags into the car, feeling as if my world was crumbling around me. Emma and Jack clung to my sides, their small faces etched with confusion and hurt. "Daddy, why can't you stay?" Emma's voice quivered, and I felt my resolve cracking. Ethan knelt down, his eyes avoiding mine. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. Daddy just needs some time away, but I'll see you soon, okay?" As he hugged our children goodbye, I caught Clara's eye over his shoulder. Her expression was a mix of guilt and defiance, and I felt a surge of anger. This was her doing, her idea of reallocating resources. When Ethan finally turned to me, I saw a flicker of regret in his eyes. "Becca, I cut him off, my voice low and steady. "Don't, just go." As the car pulled away, I felt Benjamin's presence behind me. "Well," he grumbled, "good riddance to bad rubbish, I say." I spun around, ready to snap at him, but the words died on my lips when I saw the pain in his eyes. He was hurting too, I realized. We all were. That night, after putting the kids to bed, I sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by bills and paperwork. How was I supposed to manage all this on my own? The weight of responsibility felt crushing. A soft knock interrupted my spiraling thoughts. "Mom?" Jack peeked around the door, his eyes wide. "Is Grandpa Ben okay? He's making weird noises." Alarmed, I rushed upstairs to Benjamin's room. The sound of labored breathing greeted me before I even opened the door. Inside, I found Benjamin hunched over, gasping for air. "Grandpa Ben!" I cried, rushing to his side. "What's wrong? Talk to me." He couldn't speak, just gestured weakly at his chest. My heart racing, I grabbed the phone and dialed 911. The next few hours were a blur of ambulances, emergency rooms, and anxious waiting. As dawn broke, a tired-looking doctor approached me in the waiting room. "Mrs. Thompson? Your grandfather-in-law is stable now. It was a severe asthma attack, exacerbated by stress and his recent hip surgery." Relief washed over me, quickly followed by guilt. How had I not known about his asthma? Had we all been so caught up in our own drama that we'd missed something so crucial? When I was finally allowed to see Benjamin, I found him looking small and fragile in the hospital bed. His gruff exterior had crumbled, leaving behind a vulnerable old man. "I'm sorry," he whispered as I took his hand. "I should have told you about the asthma. Didn't want to seem weak." I shook my head, fighting back tears. "No, I'm sorry. We should have been paying closer attention." As we talked, I realized something profound was happening. The walls Benjamin had built up were crumbling, and for the first time, I saw the man beneath, scared, lonely, but with a core of strength that had weathered many storms. When I returned home that afternoon, exhausted but determined, I found Emma and Jack waiting anxiously. "Is Grandpa Ben okay?" Emma asked, her voice small. I knelt down, gathering them both in my arms. "He will be," I assured them. "And we're going to help him. Together." Looking into their brave little faces, I felt a surge of love and determination. Ethan and his family might have abandoned us, but we weren't broken. We were survivors. That night, as I tucked the kids into bed, I made a silent vow. We would not just survive this, we would thrive. Benjamin, the children, and I, we would build something new and beautiful from the ashes of what we'd lost. As I closed their bedroom door, I felt a strange sense of peace settle over me. The road ahead would be challenging, but for the first time since this all began, I felt ready to face it. We were a family. Unconventional, perhaps, but bound by love and resilience, and that I realized was more powerful than any adversity we might face. My hands trembled as I smoothed down my blouse, stealing a glance at Benjamin in the passenger seat. 6 months had passed since that fateful night in the hospital, and the change in him was remarkable. Gone was the cantankerous old man, replaced by someone I'd grown to love and respect deeply. "Ready for this?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Benjamin's eyes twinkled with a mischief I'd come to recognize. "Oh, I'm more than ready, my dear. Let's give them a show they'll never forget." As we pulled up to Clara's house, my stomach churned with anxiety. This was the first time we'd all be together since Ethan left. The children were spending the day with a friend, sparing them from what I feared would be an explosive family reunion. Clara answered the door, her smile faltering as she saw Benjamin standing tall beside me, no cane in sight. "Dad, you're walking so well. Amazing what proper care can do." Benjamin replied, his tone deceptively light. Ethan appeared behind his mother, his eyes widening at the sight of us. "Becca? We weren't expecting you both." "Clearly," I said, brushing past them into the house. The atmosphere in the living room was thick with tension as we all settled in. Sarah and her husband Tom exchanged nervous glances while Clara fussed unnecessarily with refreshments. Finally, Benjamin cleared his throat. "I suppose you're all wondering why we're here." "To be honest, Dad, we're just happy to see you doing so well," Sarah said, her voice tinged with guilt. Benjamin's laugh was sharp and humorless. "Oh, I'm doing more than well, Sarah. Thanks to Rebecca here, I've not only recovered, but I've had a revelation." The room fell silent, all eyes on Benjamin. My heart raced, knowing what was coming. "You see," he continued, his voice gaining strength, "these past months have been enlightening. I've seen who truly cares about family, about legacy, about doing what's right." Ethan shifted uncomfortably. "Grandpa, if this is about us leaving—" "This is about so much more than that, boy," Benjamin cut him off. "This is about character, about who has the strength to stand by family, even when it's difficult, even when it's inconvenient. I watched as realization dawned on their faces. Clara's hand flew to her mouth, while Ethan's jaw clenched tightly. "What are you saying, Dad?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. Benjamin's eyes met mine, a silent question. I nodded, encouraging him to continue. "I'm saying," he said, turning back to his family, "that I've made a decision about the future of our family business. As of today, I'm naming Rebecca as the new head of Thompson Industries." The explosion was immediate. Clara leapt to her feet, face flushed with anger. "You can't be serious. She's not even blood." "She's more family than any of you have been," Benjamin shot back. Ethan turned to me, his eyes blazing. "You planned this, didn't you? This was your game all along." The accusation stung, but I held my ground. "The only game here, Ethan, is the one you and your family have been playing, abandoning your grandfather, abandoning our marriage." "Our marriage?" he scoffed. "You pushed me away." "Enough!" Benjamin's voice boomed, silencing the room. "My decision is final. Rebecca has shown true strength of character, true commitment to family. She's earned this." As the reality sank in, I watched the faces around me contort with a mix of shock, anger, and betrayal. Sarah was openly weeping, while Tom looked like he might be sick. Clara stood rigid, her eyes burning with fury. But it was Ethan's expression that hit me hardest. The man I had once loved, the father of my children, looked at me with such hatred that it took my breath away. In that moment, standing amidst the chaos we had unleashed, I realized there was no going back. The family I had married into was irreparably shattered, and I, Rebecca Thompson, once the outsider, now stood at its center, holding the reins of a legacy I never asked for. As Benjamin's hand found mine, squeezing it in solidarity, I took a deep breath. The storm had broken, and I was at its eye. Whatever came next, I knew one thing for certain. Nothing would ever be the same again. The weight of responsibility settled on my shoulders like a heavy cloak as I strode through the doors of Thompson Industries. My heels clicked against the marble floor, echoing in the suddenly hushed lobby. Employees whispered and stared, no doubt wondering about the woman who had seemingly appeared out of nowhere to take control of their company. I straightened my spine, channeling every ounce of confidence I could muster. This was my world now, whether I was ready for it or not. As I reached my new office, Ethan's old office, I found Benjamin waiting for me, a proud smile on his weathered face. "Ready to shake things up, Rebecca?" I nodded, my throat tight with emotion. "As ready as I'll ever be." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of meetings, decisions, and late nights. I threw myself into learning every aspect of the business, determined to prove Benjamin's faith in me wasn't misplaced. But with every success came a new challenge, often in the form of resistance from longtime employees loyal to Ethan and his family. It was after a particularly grueling board meeting that I found Ethan waiting outside my office, his face a mask of conflicting emotions. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice softer than I'd heard it in months. Against my better judgment, I let him in. As soon as the door closed behind us, Ethan's composure cracked. "I've been a fool, Becca," he said, running a hand through his hair. "I let my family cloud my judgment, push me away from what really matters, from you." I stood frozen, my heart pounding. This was the moment I dreamed of for so long, Ethan coming back admitting his mistakes. But as I looked at him, I realized something had fundamentally changed. "I want us to try again," Ethan continued, stepping closer. "For the kids, for us. We can make this work. I know we can." For a moment, I wavered. The memory of our life together, the family we'd built, tugged at my heart. But then I thought of Benjamin, of the trust he'd placed in me, of the strength I'd found within myself. "No, Ethan," I said, my voice steady. "We can't go back." His face fell, confusion and anger warring in his eyes. "What do you mean? Is this about the company? Because we can work something out." "It's not about the company," I interrupted. "It's about us. About who we've become." I moved to my desk, pulling out a manila envelope I'd been dreading and hoping for in equal measure. "I think it's time we made this official." Ethan's eyes widened as he realized what I was holding. "Divorce papers? Becca, you can't be serious." "I've never been more serious," I replied, handing him the envelope. "You're no longer part of my inner circle, Ethan. You made that choice when you walked out on us." His face contorted with rage. "You conniving bitch! You planned this all along, didn't you? worming your way into Grandpa's good graces, stealing my company, my life. I stood my ground, even as his words cut deep. I didn't plan anything, Ethan. I simply chose to stand by family when you wouldn't. This isn't over, he snarled, snatching the envelope. You'll regret this, Rebecca. I'll make sure of it. As the door slammed behind him, I sank into my chair, my hands shaking. I'd done it. I'd chosen my path, burned the last bridge to my old life. The finality of it was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. It was my assistant, looking worried. Mrs. Thompson, there's an urgent call from your children's school. There's been an incident. My blood ran cold. In that moment, as fear gripped my heart, I realized the true cost of my choices. I had gained a company, but had I put my children at risk? As I rushed out of the office, Ethan's threat echoed in my mind. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. And suddenly, everything I had fought for seemed to be hanging by a thread. The day my divorce from Ethan was finalized felt like both an ending and a beginning. As I stood on the steps of the courthouse, the weight of the past year's struggles seemed to lift from my shoulders. I took a deep breath, savoring the crisp autumn air and the sense of freedom it brought. But my moment of peace was short-lived. My phone buzzed insistently, an urgent message from the office. Ethan and his family were making a last-ditch effort to wrest control of the company from me. They had called an emergency board meeting, claiming I was unfit to lead. I rushed to Thompson Industries, my mind racing. This was it, the final battle. As I entered the boardroom, the tension was palpable. Ethan sat at one end of the table, flanked by Clara and Sarah, their faces set in grim determination. The other board members looked uncertain, caught between the old guard and the new. Rebecca, Ethan began, his voice dripping with false concern, we've called this meeting because we believe the company is suffering under your leadership. It's time to return control to those who truly understand the Thompson legacy. I felt a flicker of doubt, but then I caught Benjamin's eye. He gave me a subtle nod, and I remembered why I was here. I straightened my spine and addressed the room. Members of the board, I said, my voice steady. I know there have been changes since I took over. Change can be scary, but let me show you exactly what those changes have accomplished. For the next hour, I laid out the company's growth under my leadership, increased profits, expanded market share, and improved employee satisfaction. With each point, I saw the doubt in the board members' eyes turn to interest, then admiration. Ethan tried to interject, his face growing redder by the minute, but I held my ground. This company isn't just about legacy, I concluded. It's about innovation, adaptation, and treating people, all people, with respect. That's the true Thompson spirit, and that's what I've brought back to this company. The room fell silent as the board members exchanged glances. Then, one by one, they began to nod. The vote was called, and the result was unanimous. I would remain as CEO. As the meeting adjourned, I watched Ethan and his family storm out, their last grasp at power slipping away. I felt a twinge of sadness for what once was, but it was overshadowed by pride in what I had accomplished. Later that evening, I sat in my living room, surrounded by the warmth of my chosen family. Emma and Jack were curled up on either side of me, while Benjamin sat in his favorite armchair, looking more content than I'd ever seen him. You did it, kiddo, Benjamin said, raising his glass of sparkling cider in a toast. You saved the company and our family. I smiled, hugging my children close. We did it together, I corrected him. All of us. As I looked around at the faces of those I loved most in the world, I realized that this moment of peace, love, and triumph was what I had been fighting for all along. Not just a company or a title, but a true sense of family and purpose. The road had been hard, filled with betrayals and heartache, but it had led me here, to a place where I was stronger, wiser, and more fulfilled than I ever thought possible. Mom, Emma said, looking up at me with curious eyes, are you happy now? I felt tears prick my eyes as I answered honestly, happier than I've ever been, sweetheart. And as the evening wore on, filled with laughter and love, I knew that this was just the beginning. Whatever challenges lay ahead, I was ready to face them. Not as the woman I had been, but as the woman I had become. A woman who had taken adversity and turned it into opportunity, who had found strength in vulnerability, and who had learned that true family is not always bound by blood, but by love, loyalty, and shared struggles. This was my new chapter, my new life, and I couldn't wait to see where it would lead. I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, my hands trembling as I gripped the pregnancy test. 2 pink lines, positive. My heart raced as I tried to process this life-changing news. How would I tell Chris? As if on cue, I heard the front door open. "Nora? You home?" Chris called out. I quickly shoved the test into my pocket and splashed some water on my face. "In here," I managed to reply, my voice shakier than I'd intended. Chris appeared in the doorway, his face etched with worry. "Everything okay? You look pale." I forced a smile. "Just feeling a bit under the weather. How was your interview?" He ran a hand through his hair, a telltale sign of stress. "It was interesting. Can we talk?" We moved to the living room, settling onto our worn couch. Chris took a deep breath. "They offered me the job." "That's great news," I exclaimed, genuinely happy for him after a year of fruitless job hunting. His expression remained serious. "There's a catch, Nora. The position is in Seattle." My stomach dropped. "Seattle? But that's across the country. Our whole life is here, my art studio, our friends, your family." I know, Chris said, reaching for my hand, "but this is a fantastic opportunity. The salary is double what I was making before, and there's room for growth." I pulled away, standing up to pace the room. "What about my career? I've just started to build a name for myself in the local art scene." Chris's eyes pleaded with me. "You can paint anywhere, Nora, and with this salary, we could afford a house with a dedicated studio space for you." I felt torn. The pregnancy test weighed heavily in my pocket, a secret that would change everything. "I don't know, Chris. It's such a big decision." "We don't have to decide right this second," he said, his voice gentle, "but they need an answer by the end of the week." Just then, a cry erupted from the baby monitor. Our daughter, Lily, was awake from her nap. "I'll get her," Chris offered, standing up. As he left the room, I sank back onto the couch, my mind reeling. How could I uproot our entire life? But how could I ask Chris to turn down this opportunity after struggling for so long? When Chris returned with Lily, her chubby arms reached out for me. I took her, breathing in her sweet baby scent. "Mama sad?" Lily asked, her big blue eyes studying my face. I kissed her forehead. "No, sweetheart, Mama's just thinking." Chris sat beside us, his arm around my shoulders. "We're a team, Nora. Whatever we decide, we'll do it together." I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. How could I tell him about the baby now? It would only complicate things further. "I have an idea," Chris said suddenly. "Why don't we take a drive to that little bed and breakfast we love? We can spend the weekend there, talk things through without any distractions." The thought of escaping, even for a couple of days, was tempting. What about Lily? My mom's been begging for some grandma time. I'm sure she'd be thrilled to watch her. I hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, let's do it." As Chris made the arrangements, I excused myself to the bathroom. I pulled out the pregnancy test, staring at those 2 pink lines that had the power to change everything. How could I tell Chris now, with this job offer hanging over us? And how could I not? My mind raced with the possibilities, each scenario more daunting than the last. One thing was certain, this weekend getaway would be anything but relaxing. The moving truck rumbled away, leaving us standing in front of our new home in Seattle. Rain drizzled down, matching my mood perfectly. Chris squeezed my hand, his excitement palpable. "This is it, Nora, our fresh start." I forced a smile, my free hand resting on my now visible baby bump. "It's different." As we walked up the driveway, a voice called out, "Welcome to the neighborhood." A statuesque blonde in yoga pants jogged towards us, all smiles and bouncing ponytail. "I'm Angela, your next-door neighbor." Chris stepped forward, extending his hand. "Chris, this is my wife, Nora, and our daughter, Lily." Angela's eyes lingered on Chris a beat too long before turning to me. "Oh, and another one on the way. How exciting!" I nodded, suddenly feeling frumpy in my travel-worn clothes. "We're due in 4 months." "Well, if you need anything at all, I'm right next door," Angela said, her hand on Chris's arm. "Anything at all." As she jogged away, Chris chuckled. "Friendly neighbors. That's a good sign, right?" I mumbled agreement, but something about Angela's overly warm welcome left me uneasy. The next few weeks flew by in a whirlwind of unpacking and settling in. Chris threw himself into his new job, often working late. I struggled to find my footing, missing my old art studio and friends. One afternoon, while Lily napped, A knock at the door startled me. It was Angela, holding a plate of cookies. "Thought you might need a pick-me-up," she said, breezing past me into the kitchen. "How are you settling in?" I followed, feeling oddly defensive in my own home. "Fine, thanks. Chris is loving his new job." Angela's eyes sparkled. "Oh, I know. We had lunch yesterday. He's quite the charmer, isn't he?" My stomach clenched. "You had lunch?" "Just a quick bite in the cafeteria," she waved dismissively. "Did he not mention it? Anyway, there's a neighborhood barbecue this weekend. You simply must come." After she left, I stood in the kitchen, Angela's words echoing in my mind. Why hadn't Chris mentioned lunch? That evening, as we ate dinner, I casually asked, "How's work going? Meet any new people?" Chris nodded, mouthful of pasta. "It's great. Everyone's been really welcoming." I waited, but he didn't elaborate. "Anyone in particular?" He shrugged. "Not really. Oh, did I mention there's a company picnic coming up?" I set down my fork. "Actually, Angela invited us to a neighborhood barbecue. Same day, probably." Chris's face lit up. "Perfect. We can do both. The picnic's in the afternoon. We can hit the barbecue after." I pushed my food around my plate. "You seem awfully excited about the barbecue." He reached across the table, taking my hand. "I'm excited about making friends here, Nora. This move was hard on all of us. I want it to work." I nodded, guilt washing over me. Was I being paranoid? The barbecue arrived, and I found myself surrounded by Angela's friends. They were all impossibly fit, sipping wine and trading neighborhood gossip. "Oh, Nora," one woman said, her voice dripping with faux sympathy. "It must be so hard being pregnant in a new city, and with Chris working such long hours." Another chimed in. "At least he has Angela to keep him company at work. She's such a dear, always looking out for the new employees." My head snapped up. "What do you mean?" The women exchanged glances. "Oh, nothing, dear. It's just nice that he has a friendly face at the office." I scanned the yard, spotting Chris and Angela by the grill, laughing at some private joke. As I watched, she placed her hand on his arm, leaning in close to whisper something. A cold dread settled in my stomach. What was really going on here? As we drove home that night, Chris chatted happily about the new friends we'd made. I stared out the window, my mind racing. "Nora? You okay?" Chris asked, concern in his voice. I turned to him, searching his face. "Chris, is there something you're not telling me?" Chris's face paled at my question. "What do you mean? I've told you everything." I wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at me. "It's just... you and Angela seem awfully close." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Nora, she's just being friendly. You're reading too much into this." I let it drop, but sleep eluded me that night. The next morning, while Chris was in the shower, I did something I'd never done before. I checked his phone. My hands shook as I scrolled through his messages. There it was, a thread with Angela. My heart raced as I opened it. "Great seeing you today. Lunch again tomorrow?" "Absolutely. Same time, same place." "Can't wait. You always brighten my day." I felt sick. The messages weren't explicitly romantic, but the familiarity, the frequency, it was all wrong. Chris's footsteps approached. I quickly put the phone down, my mind reeling. "Hey, honey," he said, kissing my cheek. "I'm heading out. Big presentation today." I nodded, unable to meet his eyes. "Good luck," I managed to choke out. As soon as he left, I burst into tears. Lily toddled over, her little face scrunched with concern. "Mama sad?" I pulled her close, breathing in her sweet baby scent. "No, sweetheart. Mama's okay." But I wasn't okay. Far from it. That afternoon, I took Lily to the park, desperate for a distraction. As she played in the sandbox, I sat on a nearby bench, lost in thought. "Mind if I join you?" I looked up to see an older woman with kind eyes and silver hair. "Please." I gestured to the empty seat. "I'm Marianne," she said, settling beside me. "You look like you could use a friendly ear." Something about her warmth broke through my defenses. Before I knew it, I was pouring out the whole story. The move, Angela, the text messages. Marianne listened without judgment, her eyes filled with understanding. When I finished, she took my hand. "Oh, honey, I've been where you are." "What did you do?" I asked, desperate for guidance. She smiled sadly. I ignored it, convinced myself I was imagining things. "Don't make my mistake, Nora. Trust your instincts." As we talked, Lily ran over, proudly showing off a handful of pebbles. Marianne's face lit up. "What a beautiful collection. You must be so proud of your mommy." Lily beamed, then ran back to play. Marianne turned to me, her expression serious. Whatever you decide to do, remember, you're not just fighting for yourself, you're fighting for her too. Her words struck a chord. I thought of the baby growing inside me, of Lily's innocent face. They deserved better than this. But how can I be sure? I asked, voicing my deepest fear. Marianne squeezed my hand. You dig deeper, gather evidence, and when you know for certain, you act. That night, after putting Lily to bed, I sat at the kitchen table, Chris's phone in my hands. He was working late again, or so he said. With trembling fingers, I opened his location history. My breath caught as I saw an unfamiliar address, visited multiple times over the past weeks. I grabbed my car keys, determination overriding my fear. It was time to see for myself. The address led me to a small apartment complex. As I pulled up, I saw Chris's car parked outside. My heart pounded as I approached the building. Through a ground floor window, I saw them, Chris and Angela, sitting close on a couch, laughing over glasses of wine. I stumbled back, bile rising in my throat. It was real. It was all real. As I drove home, tears blurring my vision, one thought echoed in my mind. What am I going to do now? The annual company picnic loomed, and I dreaded every second of it. But I had to go. I needed to see Chris and Angela together with my own eyes. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe there was an innocent explanation for everything. As we arrived at the park, Chris squeezed my hand. You okay? You've been quiet lately. I forced a smile. Just tired. The pregnancy, you know. He nodded, distracted by something over my shoulder. Oh, there's Angela. I promised I'd help her set up the volleyball net. Before I could respond, he was gone, jogging towards that familiar blonde ponytail. I watched as they laughed together, their bodies in perfect sync as they worked. Mama, swing! Lily tugged at my hand, pulling me towards the playground. As I pushed Lily on the swing, my eyes never left Chris and Angela. They were always near each other, sharing private jokes, touching casually. It was like watching a dance I wasn't part of. Your husband seems close with Angela, a voice beside me said. It was one of the women from the neighborhood barbecue. I stiffened. They're just colleagues. She raised an eyebrow. If you say so, dear, but if I were you, I'd keep a closer eye on them. Anger flared in my chest. How dare she? But as I opened my mouth to retort, I realized she was right. I needed to know the truth, once and for all. As the afternoon wore on, I lost sight of Chris. Panic rose in my throat. Where was he? Where was Angela? Lisa, can you watch Lily for a minute? I asked another mom. I need to find Chris. I searched the crowded park, my heart pounding. Then I saw them, ducking behind a storage shed at the far end of the field. Without thinking, I followed. As I approached, I heard Angela's lilting laugh. Oh, Chris, you're terrible. You love it, Chris's voice replied, low and intimate. I peered around the corner of the shed, and my world shattered. Chris had Angela pressed against the wall, his lips on her neck, her hands tangled in his hair. A strangled gasp escaped me. They sprang apart, guilt written all over their faces. Nora? Chris exclaimed, his face pale. It's not. This isn't. But I was already running, tears blurring my vision. I heard Chris calling after me, but I didn't stop. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. I found myself at the playground, scooping up a confused Lily. We're going home, baby, I choked out. But Daddy? She asked, looking around. Daddy's busy, I said, my voice breaking. As I buckled Lily into her car seat, Chris caught up to us. Nora, please, let me explain. I whirled on him, fury and pain coursing through me. Explain what, Chris? How you've been lying to me? How you've been sneaking around with her? He reached for me, but I jerked away. Don't touch me. Don't you dare touch me. It was a mistake, he pleaded. It didn't mean anything. I love you, Nora. You and Lily are my world. I laughed bitterly. Your world? Is that why you've been spending every spare moment with her? Chris's face crumpled. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please, can we talk about this? We can fix this. For a moment, I wavered. I thought of our life together, of Lily, of the baby on the way, but then I remembered the sight of him with Angela, and my resolve hardened. I don't know if we can fix this, Chris, I said, my voice cold. I don't know if I want to. As I drove away, leaving Chris standing alone in the parking lot, 1,000 thoughts raced through my mind. What would I do now? How would I tell Lily? Could I raise 2 children on my own? But beneath the fear and uncertainty, a small voice whispered, You're stronger than you know. You can do this. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, a plan already forming in my mind. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. I hadn't slept in days. Chris's desperate calls and messages went unanswered as I grappled with the shattered pieces of my life. Lily's confused tears only deepened my anguish. How could I explain that Daddy wasn't coming home? One particularly rough morning, I found myself back at the park, hoping the fresh air might clear my head. Lily was with my mother, giving me a rare moment alone. "Nora?" a familiar voice called. It was Marianne, the kind older woman I'd met before. "Oh, honey, you look like you've been through hell." The sympathy in her eyes broke something in me. Before I knew it, I was sobbing, pouring out the whole sordid story between gasps. Marianne listened, her face a mix of compassion and anger. When I finished, she took my hands in hers. "You're stronger than you realize, Nora, but you need to be smart about this." "What do you mean?" I asked, wiping my eyes. She leaned in, her voice low. "Men like Chris, they're good at spinning tales. You need hard evidence before you make any decisions." I shook my head. "I saw them together. What more evidence do I need? For yourself? Nothing. But for a divorce, for custody, you need more." Marianne's eyes hardened. "I made the mistake of confronting my ex-husband without proof. He turned it all around on me, made me doubt myself. I won't let that happen to you." Her words sent a chill through me. "What should I do?" "Dig deeper," she said firmly. "Get into his email, his bank statements, follow him if you have to, and don't let on that you know anything." The thought of pretending everything was normal made me sick. "I don't know if I can face him." Marianne squeezed my hand. "You can, and you will, for Lily and for that baby you're carrying. They deserve better, and so do you." As I drove home, Marianne's advice echoed in my mind. Could I really play the role of the unsuspecting wife? The thought of Chris touching me, kissing me, while I knew about Angela, made my skin crawl. But as I walked into our house, the house we'd chosen together, filled with memories and dreams, resolve steeled my spine. I would do whatever it took to protect my children and myself. That evening, when Chris came home, I forced myself to greet him with a smile. "Hi, honey. How was work?" The relief on his face was palpable. It was, "Good. Nora, can we talk?" I nodded, my heart racing. "Of course." We sat on the couch, an ocean of unspoken words between us. Chris took a deep breath. "About what happened at the picnic, it was a horrible mistake. Angela means nothing to me. You and Lily are everything." I wanted to scream, to throw his lies back in his face. Instead, I said softly, "I overreacted. I've been so emotional with the pregnancy. Can we just start over?" The hope that bloomed in Chris's eyes made me want to vomit. He pulled me into a hug, murmuring apologies and promises. Over his shoulder, my eyes fell on a framed photo of us with Lily, my beautiful, innocent daughter, my unborn child. They deserved the truth, whatever it might be. In that moment, I made my decision. I would play along, gather evidence, and when the time was right, I would bring it all crashing down. As Chris held me, thinking all was forgiven, I began to plan. I would leave no stone unturned, no secret unexposed. And when I was done, Chris and Angela would regret ever underestimating me. The game was on, and I intended to win. The next few weeks were a masterclass in deception. I played the role of the forgiving wife perfectly, all while gathering evidence with Marianne's help. We combed through bank statements, tracked Chris's movements, and even hired a private investigator. One rainy afternoon, Marianne and I huddled over my laptop, sifting through the latest batch of information from the PI. "Look at this." Marianne pointed to a series of transactions. Regular withdrawals, always the same amount, always on Fridays. My heart sank. "The day he claims to work late." Marianne squeezed my hand. "We've got him, Nora. Now we just need the final piece of evidence." As if on cue, my phone buzzed. It was a text from the PI. "Meeting confirmed. Sending location now." I stood up, adrenaline coursing through me. "This is it. I'm going." Marianne looked concerned. "Are you sure? I could go instead." I shook my head. "No, I need to see this with my own eyes." The drive to the motel was a blur. Rain lashed against the windshield, matching the storm in my heart. I parked across the street, my eyes fixed on room 12. At exactly 7 p.m., a familiar car pulled up. Chris stepped out, looking around furtively before knocking on the door. Angela answered, pulling him inside. I felt numb. Even after everything, a part of me had hoped it wasn't true. I raised my phone, capturing video of Chris entering the room. Suddenly, a tap on my window made me jump. It was the PI, gesturing for me to roll down the window. "Mrs. Thompson, I've got audio set up in the room. Do you want to listen?" I hesitated, then nodded. He handed me a small device with headphones. Chris's voice came through clearly. I can't keep doing this, Angela. Nora's pregnant. I need to focus on my family. Angela's laugh was cold. Oh, please, you've been saying that for months. Face it, Chris, you're not happy with her. You never have been. That's not true, Chris protested weakly. Then why are you here? Angela challenged. There was a long pause, then the unmistakable sound of kissing. I ripped off the headphones, bile rising in my throat. I'd heard enough. As I drove home, my mind raced. I had all the evidence I needed now. But what would I do with it? Marianne was waiting when I got back. One look at my face told her everything. Oh, honey, she said, pulling me into a hug. I'm so sorry. As I recounted what I'd seen and heard, Marianne's expression hardened. He doesn't deserve you, Nora. It's time to take back your life. But how? I asked, feeling lost. A quiet divorce? Try to keep it civil for Lily's sake? Marianne shook her head. No. Men like Chris, they need to be exposed. Publicly. It's the only way they learn. Her words ignited something in me. Years of suppressed anger, of putting everyone else first, of dimming my own light. It all came rushing to the surface. You're right, I said, my voice stronger than I'd heard it in months. No more hiding. No more pretending. It's time everyone knew the truth. Marianne smiled, a glint of satisfaction in her eyes. That's my girl. Now let's plan this out properly. We want maximum impact. As we strategized late into the night, a part of me wondered if this was too far. Was public humiliation really the answer? But then I thought of Lily, of the baby I was carrying. I thought of all the women who had been in my shoes, who had suffered in silence. No more. It was time to reclaim my voice, my power, my life. As Marianne and I finalized our plan, I felt a mix of exhilaration and terror. In just a few days, everything would change. There was no going back now. I placed a hand on my growing belly, whispering a promise. We're going to be okay. Mama's going to make sure of it. The annual neighborhood block party was in full swing. Families mingled, kids ran around with sticky faces, and the air was thick with the smell of barbecue. I stood on the periphery, my heart pounding so hard I was sure everyone could hear it. Marianne appeared at my side, a reassuring presence. Are you ready? I nodded, unable to speak. In my hand, I clutched a USB drive containing all the evidence of Chris and Angela's affair. Photos, videos, bank statements, everything. Chris was at the grill playing the role of perfect husband and neighbor. Angela hovered nearby, laughing too loudly at his jokes. The sight of them together made my blood boil. Remember, Marianne whispered, wait for my signal. I watched as she made her way to the makeshift stage where the karaoke machine was set up. She tapped the microphone, drawing everyone's attention. Ladies and gentlemen, Marianne announced, we have a special presentation from our very own Nora Thompson. This was it, my moment of truth. As I walked to the stage, Chris caught my eye. He smiled, oblivious to what was about to happen. I felt a flicker of doubt. Was I really going to do this? Then I saw Angela place her hand on Chris's arm, and my resolve hardened. I plugged in the USB drive and grabbed the microphone. I have a story to tell you all, I began, my voice shaky but gaining strength. A story about betrayal, lies, and the importance of truth. The crowd fell silent, sensing the gravity in my tone. Chris's smile faltered. For months I've been living a lie, I continued, pretending everything was fine while my husband carried on an affair with our neighbor. Gasps rippled through the audience. Chris's face drained of color. Angela tried to slip away, but Marianne blocked her path. I have proof, I said, pressing play on the first video. Chris and Angela's voices filled the air, discussing their secret meetings. The crowd watched in stunned silence as image after image appeared on the screen. Chris entering the motel. Bank statements showing his withdrawals. Text messages full of intimate details. I locked eyes with Chris. Did you think I wouldn't find out? Did you think I was too stupid, too trusting? He started towards the stage. Nora, please. No, I shouted, surprising even myself with the force of my voice. You don't get to speak now. You've done enough talking behind my back. As the evidence continued to play, I saw the reactions around me. Shock, disgust, pity. Angela had collapsed into a chair, sobbing. Chris stood frozen, his world crumbling around him. But then I heard a small voice. Mommy? Lily stood at the edge of the crowd, her eyes wide with confusion and fear. My triumph turned to ash in my mouth. What had I done? I stumbled off the stage, pushing past the murmuring crowd to reach my daughter. As I scooped her up, I caught sight of Chris. The devastation on his face mirrored my own. "Nora," he choked out, "I'm so sorry. Please, can we talk?" But it was too late. The damage was done. As I carried Lily away from the chaos, Marianne caught up with us. "You did it, Nora. You showed them all." "No," I cut her off, the weight of my actions crashing down on me. "This wasn't right. Not like this." Marianne's expression hardened. "Don't go soft now. He deserved this." I looked at Lily, clinging to me in confusion, then back at the devastation I'd left behind. Maybe he did, but Lily didn't, and neither did I. As we walked away from the party, the sounds of shock and gossip fading behind us, I realized the bitter truth. In my quest for revenge, I'd hurt the very people I was trying to protect. The triumph I'd imagined felt hollow. Instead of closure, I was left with a gnawing question. What do I do now? The days following the block party were a blur of tears, hushed conversations, and sleepless nights. Chris moved out, staying with a friend. I was left alone with Lily, trying to explain why Daddy wasn't home. One afternoon, as Lily napped, I sat in my makeshift art studio, staring at a blank canvas. For the first time in years, I felt the urge to paint. As I picked up a brush, there was a knock at the door. It was Chris, looking haggard and remorseful. "Can we talk?" I nodded, letting him in. We sat at the kitchen table, the weight of our broken marriage between us. "I'm so sorry, Nora," Chris began, his voice cracking. "What I did was unforgivable. I understand if you want a divorce." I took a deep breath. I thought I did, but seeing Lily's face that day, it made me realize revenge isn't the answer. Chris looked up, hope flickering in his eyes. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying we owe it to Lily and to this baby." I placed a hand on my swollen belly to try and work through this. "But things have to change, Chris. I won't be taken for granted again." We talked for hours, laying everything bare. Chris's insecurities about providing for the family, my resentment at giving up my art, the breakdown in our communication. It was painful, but cathartic. "I want to go to counseling," I said firmly. "Both of us, together and separately, and I'm going back to painting. It's not negotiable." Chris nodded eagerly. "Anything you want. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right." As we talked, I felt a shift within me. The anger that had consumed me for so long began to ebb, replaced by a sense of empowerment. I wasn't just Chris's wife or Lily's mother. I was Nora, artist, woman, survivor. Weeks turned into months. Chris threw himself into therapy, taking on more responsibilities at home. I set up a proper studio and started selling my paintings online. Slowly, we rebuilt trust. One evening, as we tucked Lily into bed, she asked, "Are you and Daddy happy now?" I looked at Chris, seeing the man I fell in love with, changed but somehow stronger. "We're working on it, sweetie, every day." As her due date approached, Nora found herself in her studio, working on a new piece. It was a self-portrait, not the meek housewife she'd become, but the strong, resilient woman she'd discovered. Chris appeared in the doorway, a mug of tea in hand. "That's incredible, Nora. It's so you." I smiled, really smiled for the first time in months. "It is, isn't it?" He set the tea down and wrapped his arms around me, careful of my belly. "I'm so proud of you and grateful you gave us another chance." I leaned into him, feeling our baby kick. "We've both changed, Chris. This isn't the life I imagined, but maybe it's the one we needed." As I put the finishing touches on my self-portrait, I realized that this, the messy, complicated, beautiful life we were rebuilding, was my masterpiece. The next day, I received an email from a gallery in the city. They wanted to feature my work in an upcoming show. As I shared the news with Chris, watching his face light up with genuine pride, I knew we'd be okay. Not perfect, but okay. That night, as we lay in bed, Chris's hand on my belly, I thought about the journey we'd been on. The pain, the betrayal, the near destruction of everything we'd built. But I also thought about the strength I'd found, the voice I'd reclaimed. I wasn't just Chris's wife or Lily's mother anymore. I was Nora Thompson, artist, survivor, woman reborn. As I drifted off to sleep, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. Whatever challenges tomorrow might bring, I knew I had the strength to face them, not just for my family, but for myself. The canvas of our life wasn't perfect. It had its dark spots, its messy streaks, but it was ours, and it was beautiful in its own way. And I, Nora Thompson, was the artist holding the brush. I stood in the kitchen, my hands trembling as I clutched the phone. The text message from Martin glowed on the screen. Working late again. Don't wait up. Lies. All lies. I glanced at the clock. 7:30 p.m. Olivia would be home from soccer practice any minute. How could I face my daughter knowing what I knew about her father? The front door slammed, and Olivia's voice rang out. "Mom, I'm starving." I quickly wiped my eyes and plastered on a smile. "In the kitchen, sweetie. How was practice?" Olivia bounced in, her ponytail swinging. At 15, she was the spitting image of me at that age. Before I met Martin, before everything changed. "It was great. Coach says I might start next game." "That's wonderful, honey." I turned to the fridge, grateful for the distraction. "How about some pasta for dinner?" "Sounds good. Where's Dad?" The question hit me like a punch to the gut. I gripped the refrigerator door, steadying myself. "He's working late." Olivia groaned. "Again? He's always working these days." If only that were true. I took a deep breath and faced my daughter. "Liv, there's something we need to talk about." Her brow furrowed. "What's wrong, Mom? You look upset." I gestured to the kitchen table. "Let's sit down." As we settled into our chairs, I reached for Olivia's hand. Her fingers were calloused from hours of soccer practice, but they still felt so small in mine. How could I shatter her world? "Honey, your father and we're having some problems." Olivia's eyes widened. "What kind of problems?" I swallowed hard. "I've discovered that your father has been seeing someone else." The words hung in the air between us. Olivia jerked her hand away, her face a mask of disbelief. "What? No, Dad wouldn't do that." "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I wish it wasn't true, but—" "You're lying." Olivia shot to her feet, her chair scraping across the floor. "Dad loves us. He wouldn't cheat." The phone in my pocket buzzed. Another text from Martin, grabbing drinks with the guys. "Be home late." I pulled out the phone, my hands shaking. "Liv, look." She snatched the phone, her eyes scanning the message. "So, he's out with friends. That doesn't mean anything." "Olivia, please. I know this is hard to hear, but—" The front door opened and Martin's voice called out. "Anyone home?" Olivia's head snapped up, her eyes blazing. Before I could stop her, she bolted from the kitchen. "Now, Dad! Mom's saying awful things about you. Tell her she's wrong." I followed, my heart pounding. Martin stood in the entryway, briefcase in hand, looking bewildered. "What's going on?" Olivia thrust my phone at him. "Mom says you're cheating, but that's not true, right? Tell her." Martin's face drained of color as he read the text. His eyes met mine, and in that moment I saw the truth written all over his face. "Oh, Liv," I whispered. Olivia looked from Martin to me, and back again. The realization dawned in her eyes, followed quickly by hurt and anger. "How could you?" she screamed at Martin. Then she turned and ran up the stairs, slamming her bedroom door. Martin took a step toward me. "Elaine, I can explain." I held up a hand, stopping him in his tracks. "Don't. Just don't." We stood there in silence, the weight of broken promises and shattered trust hanging between us. Finally I spoke. "I want a divorce." Martin's shoulders sagged. "Elaine, please, we can work this out, for Olivia's sake." "No," I cut him off. "We're done. I'm taking Olivia and leaving." "You can't just take her." Martin's voice rose. "She's my daughter, too." I met his gaze, steel in my voice. "Watch me." As I turned to head upstairs and comfort our daughter, one thought crystallized in my mind. I would do whatever it took to protect Olivia and build a new life for us, with or without Martin's cooperation. I sat at Teresa's kitchen table, clutching a mug of tea that had long since gone cold. My best friend of 20 years listened intently as I poured out the whole sordid tale. "I just can't believe it, Teresa. 23 years of marriage, and this is how it ends." Teresa reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Oh, Elaine, I'm so sorry. What are you going to do now?" I sighed, feeling the weight of uncertainty pressing down on me. "I don't know. I told Martin I want a divorce, but... God, how did we get here?" As I spoke, memories flooded back. Martin and I, young and in love, dancing at our wedding. The joy on his face when Olivia was born. Family vacations, holiday dinners, quiet nights curled up on the couch. When had it all started to unravel? "Remember when you first introduced us?" I asked Teresa. "That New Year's Eve party at your place?" She smiled softly. "How could I forget? Martin couldn't take his eyes off you all night." He was so charming back then. Funny, attentive. I thought I'd hit the jackpot. Teresa's expression turned serious. "Elaine, you can't blame yourself for this. Martin made his choices." I nodded, fighting back tears. I know, it's just, we struggled so much these past few years. The financial stress, Martin's job changes, Olivia hitting her difficult teenage phase. I thought we were in it together, you know? A team. And now I feel like a fool. I stood up abruptly, pacing Teresa's small kitchen. All those late nights at the office, the sudden business trips. How long has this been going on? How many other women have there been? Teresa stood and wrapped me in a hug. Oh, honey, you don't need to torture yourself with those questions. What matters now is taking care of yourself and Olivia. As if on cue, my phone buzzed. A text from Olivia. When are you coming home? Dad keeps trying to talk to me. I showed Teresa the message, my stomach churning. I don't know how to protect her from this, Teresa. She idolized Martin. You start by being honest with her, Teresa said firmly, and by showing her that you're strong enough to get through this, both of you. I nodded, gathering my resolve. You're right, we need to make a clean break, start fresh. What about the house? Teresa asked. I hesitated. The house had been our dream, a beautiful Victorian we'd spent years restoring. But now, I can't stay there, too many memories. Besides, I don't think I can afford it on my own. You know, Teresa said slowly, my sister's rental property just opened up. It's smaller, but it's in a great school district for Olivia, and I'm sure Sarah would give you a good deal. Hope flickered in my chest. Really? That could work. As I gathered my things to leave, Teresa pulled me in for another hug. You've got this, Elaine. And I'm here for you, every step of the way. I drove home, my mind racing with plans and worries. As I pulled into the driveway, I saw Martin's car still parked there. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. I wasn't ready to face him again. Not yet. Taking a deep breath, I walked into the house. Olivia was curled up on the couch, her eyes red-rimmed from crying. Martin sat in the armchair, looking lost. Mom! Olivia launched herself into my arms. Where were you? Dad's been trying to explain, but I don't want to hear it. I stroked her hair, shooting a warning glance at Martin. It's okay, sweetie. We don't have to talk about it right now. Martin stood, his face a mask of guilt and desperation. Elaine, please, can we just... Not now, I cut him off. Olivia, why don't you go upstairs and start packing some things? We're going to stay at Aunt Teresa's for a few days. As Olivia trudged upstairs, Martin stepped closer. You can't just take her, Elaine. We need to work this out. I met his gaze, steel in my voice. No, Martin, you lost the right to make demands when you broke our vows. I'm doing what's best for our daughter. As I turned to follow Olivia upstairs, Martin called out, I'll fight you on this, Elaine. I swear I will. I paused at the foot of the stairs, a chill running down my spine. The battle lines were drawn, and I knew the real fight was just beginning. The guest room at Teresa's house felt like a sanctuary after the chaos of the past few days. I sat on the edge of the bed, watching Olivia unpack her hastily thrown-together suitcase. Mom? Her voice was small, vulnerable. What's going to happen now? I patted the spot next to me, and she sat down, leaning her head on my shoulder. I don't know all the details yet, sweetie, but I promise you we're going to be okay. Olivia sniffled. I hate him, Mom. I hate what he did to us. My heart ached at her words. Oh, Liv, I know you're hurting, but try not to let hate consume you. Your father made terrible choices, but he still loves you. She jerked away from me, eyes flashing. How can you say that? If he loved us, he wouldn't have cheated. I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. Adults can make mistakes, even huge ones, without stopping loving their children. What your father did was wrong, but it doesn't erase the good times or the love he has for you. Olivia stood up, pacing the small room. I don't care. I don't want to see him or talk to him ever again. Liv. I mean it, Mom. She whirled to face me, tears streaming down her cheeks. He abandoned us. He chose her over his family. How am I supposed to forgive that? I stood and pulled her into a tight hug, feeling her body shake with sobs. You don't have to forgive him right now, or maybe ever. But I need you to know that this isn't your fault. Your father's choices are his own. As Olivia's tears subsided, I gently guided her back to the bed. Listen, sweetie, I know this is hard, but I need you to be strong. We're going to get through this together, okay? She nodded, wiping her eyes. Okay, Mom, I trust you. A knock at the door interrupted us. Teresa poked her head in. Sorry to bother you, but Elaine, Martin's here. He's demanding to see Olivia. My stomach clenched. Absolutely not. He can't just show up here and... I want to see him, Olivia said suddenly. I turned to her, surprised. Are you sure? You don't have to if you're not ready. Olivia's jaw set in a determined line. I'm sure. I have some things I need to say to him. Reluctantly, I nodded. All right, but I'm coming with you. We followed Teresa downstairs to find Martin pacing in the living room. When he saw Olivia, his face crumpled. Oh, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. Olivia crossed her arms, her voice ice cold. Sorry for what, Dad? For cheating on Mom? For lying to us? For breaking apart our family? Martin flinched. Liv, please. I know I made a terrible mistake, but I love you. I want to make this right. You can't make this right. Olivia's voice rose. You ruined everything. I stepped forward, placing a hand on Olivia's shoulder. Martin, I think you should go. He shook his head, desperation in his eyes. No, please. Just let me explain. Olivia, your mother and we've been having problems for a long time. It's complicated. Stop it, I snapped. Don't you dare try to justify what you did or blame our marriage problems. You made a choice, Martin. Own it. Martin's face hardened. Fine, but I'm not giving up on my daughter. I'll fight for custody if I have to. Ice ran through my veins. You wouldn't dare. Try me, he growled. Olivia looked between us, her face pale. I don't want to live with you, Dad. I want to stay with Mom. Martin's expression softened. Sweetie, I know you're upset now, but get out. Olivia's voice was low, trembling with anger. I don't want to see you anymore. Just go. With a last pleading look at me, Martin turned and left. As the door closed behind him, Olivia collapsed into my arms, sobbing once more. Over her head, I met Teresa's worried gaze. We both knew this was far from over. Later that night, after Olivia had cried herself to sleep, I sat at Teresa's kitchen table, my laptop open in front of me. With shaking hands, I began to type. Documentation of Martin Henderson's infidelity and its impact on our family. I knew the road ahead would be difficult, but I was determined to protect Olivia and build a new life for us, no matter what it took. I sat in my car outside Martin's office, my heart pounding. After days of digging through bank statements and phone records, I'd finally uncovered the truth. Now I needed to confront him face to face. Taking a deep breath, I stepped out of the car and marched into the building. The receptionist looked up, startled. Mrs. Henderson, we weren't expecting you. I need to see my husband, I said, my voice steady despite my churning stomach. Before she could respond, Martin's office door opened. He froze when he saw me, his face pale. Elaine, what are you doing here? I held up the manila folder in my hand. We need to talk. Now. Martin glanced nervously at the receptionist before ushering me into his office. As soon as the door closed, I slammed the folder onto his desk. Who is she, Martin? He blinked, feigning confusion. What are you talking about? I opened the folder, spreading out credit card statements and hotel receipts. Don't lie to me. Not anymore. I know about the charges at the Hilton, the jewelry store purchases. Who is she? Martin's shoulders sagged. He sank into his chair, suddenly looking old and defeated. Her name is Rebecca. She was a client. The confirmation hit me like a physical blow. I gripped the edge of his desk to steady myself. How long? Elaine, please. How long? He wouldn't meet my eyes. 8 months. 8 months. While I was planning our anniversary trip, while we were celebrating Olivia's birthday, I felt sick. Do you love her? The words came out in a whisper. Martin's head snapped up. No, God, no. It was just, I don't know, a distraction, I guess. Things between us have been so strained lately. Don't you dare blame this on me, I hissed. You made a choice, Martin. You chose to betray our vows, to lie to me and Olivia for months. He reached for my hand, but I jerked away. Elaine, I'm so sorry. Please, can we work this out? For Olivia's sake? I laughed bitterly. You should have thought about Olivia before you started sleeping with your client. Martin's face hardened. Fine. If that's how you want to play it, I'll fight you every step of the way. I won't let you take my daughter from me. Your daughter? I spat. The one you abandoned? The one who says she never wants to see you again? He flinched as if I'd struck him. She doesn't mean that. She's just upset. She has every right to be upset. You broke her heart, Martin. You broke our family. We stared at each other across the desk, years of love and trust crumbling between us. Finally, Martin spoke, his voice low and dangerous. I won't give up without a fight, Elaine. I have resources you can't imagine. If you try to take Olivia away from me, I'll make sure you have nothing left. A chill ran down my spine, but I stood my ground. Is that a threat? It's a promise. I gathered the documents, my hands shaking. You've already taken everything that matters, Martin. But if you want a war, you've got one. As I turned to leave, Martin called out, "Wait, there's something else you should know." I paused, my hand on the doorknob. "What?" "Rebecca, she's pregnant." The world tilted on its axis. I stumbled, catching myself on the doorframe. "What did you say?" Martin's voice was barely audible. "She's 3 months along. It's mine." I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Without another word, I wrenched open the door and fled. In the parking lot, I sat in my car, gasping for air. A baby. Martin was having a baby with another woman. The final betrayal, the ultimate nail in the coffin of our marriage. As the shock faded, a new emotion took its place. Determination. Martin wanted a fight? He'd get one. I pulled out my phone and dialed Teresa's number. "I need the name of the best divorce lawyer in town," I said when she answered. "It's time to take Martin for everything he's worth." I stared at the divorce papers spread across Teresa's kitchen table, my signature still fresh on the dotted line. It felt surreal, like I was watching someone else's life fall apart. "Are you sure about this, Elaine?" Teresa asked gently. I nodded, my jaw set. "I have to do this, for Olivia and for myself." The doorbell rang, startling us both. Teresa went to answer it, returning with a grim expression. "It's your mother-in-law." My stomach dropped. Linda. Of course, Martin would send her to do his dirty work. I steeled myself as Linda burst into the kitchen, her face flushed with anger. "Elaine, what do you think you're doing? Filing for divorce? Have you lost your mind?" I stood, facing her head on. "Linda, I understand you're upset, but this is between Martin and me." She waved a dismissive hand. "Nonsense. Marriage is about family, about commitment. You can't just throw it away because of one little mistake." "Little mistake?" I felt my temper rising. "Your son had an affair for 8 months. He got another woman pregnant. That's not a little mistake, Linda. That's a betrayal." Linda's eyes widened. "Pregnant? What are you talking about?" I froze, realizing my error. Martin hadn't told his parents yet. I'm sorry, I thought you knew." She sank into a chair, the fight draining out of her. "Oh, Martin, what have you done?" As much as I resented Linda's interference, I couldn't help feeling a twinge of sympathy. She was losing her family, too. The back door slammed, and Olivia walked in, stopping short when she saw Linda. "Grandma, what are you doing here?" Linda stood, arms outstretched. "Oh, sweetheart, I came to talk some sense into your mother. This divorce nonsense." "It's not nonsense," Olivia cut her off, her voice cold. "Dad cheated. He lied to all of us." Linda flinched. "Olivia, honey, I know you're hurt, but your father loves you. We can work this out as a family." Olivia's eyes flashed with anger. "We're not a family anymore. Dad made sure of that." I stepped between them, sensing Olivia's rising distress. "Linda, I think it's best if you go now." She hesitated, then nodded. "Just think about what you're doing, Elaine, to all of us." As the door closed behind her, Olivia turned to me, her face pale. "Mom, you're not going to change your mind, are you?" I pulled her into a hug. "No, sweetie, I promise you, we're moving forward." Later that evening, as Olivia did homework in her room, my phone buzzed with a text from Martin. "We need to talk about the baby." My hands shook as I replied, "There's nothing to discuss. It's over." His response came quickly. "Please, Elaine, just hear me out, for old time's sake." I stared at the screen, torn. Part of me wanted to ignore him, to cut all ties, but another part, the part that still remembered the good times, hesitated. Before I could decide, another text came through. "I'm outside. Please." My heart raced as I peeked out the window. There he was, sitting in his car, looking lost and defeated. "Everything okay, Mom?" Olivia called from upstairs. I took a deep breath, making my decision. "Everything's fine, honey. I just need to step out for a minute." As I walked towards Martin's car, I steeled myself for whatever came next. This conversation could change everything, for better or worse. But I was done being a victim. Whatever Martin had to say, I would face it head-on, for myself and for Olivia. I tapped on the car window, my voice steady as I spoke. "You have 5 minutes, Martin. Make them count." I stood in the middle of our new apartment, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes and the lingering scent of fresh paint. It wasn't much, but it was ours, a fresh start for Olivia and me. "Mom," Olivia called from her room. "Where's the box with my soccer trophies?" "Check near the bookshelf, honey." I replied, smiling at her enthusiasm. Despite everything, Olivia was adapting well to our new life. As I unpacked dishes in the kitchen, my phone buzzed. A text from Teresa. "How's the new place? Settling in okay?" I was about to reply when a sharp knock at the door made me jump. Frowning, I set down my phone and went to answer it. The moment I opened the door, I wished I hadn't. Linda stood there, her face a mask of barely contained fury. "We need to talk," she said, pushing past me into the apartment. "Linda, this isn't a good time." She whirled to face me. "When is a good time, Elaine? When you've completely destroyed our family?" I took a deep breath, struggling to keep my voice calm. "I didn't destroy anything, Linda. Martin made his choices." "Mom?" Olivia appeared in the hallway, her eyes widening at the sight of her grandmother. "What's going on?" Linda's expression softened slightly. "Oh, Olivia, sweetheart, I've come to talk some sense into your mother. This divorce nonsense has gone on long enough." Olivia's face hardened. "It's not nonsense, Grandma. Dad cheated. He lied to all of us." "Olivia, go to your room," I said quietly. "I'll handle this." As soon as Olivia's door closed, Linda rounded on me. "How dare you turn my granddaughter against her father, against our family?" I felt my own anger rising. "I haven't turned anyone against anyone, Linda. Martin did that all on his own when he decided to have an affair. People make mistakes, Elaine. Marriage is about forgiveness, about working through the hard times." I laughed bitterly. "Forgiveness? He got another woman pregnant, Linda. How am I supposed to forgive that?" Linda's face paled. That's just a rumor. Martin assured me it wasn't true." "Well, he lied to you too then, because I heard it straight from him." For a moment, Linda looked lost. Then her eyes hardened again. "Even so, there are ways to deal with that situation. You don't have to throw away 23 years of marriage." I was about to retort when the front door burst open. Martin strode in, looking frantic. "Mom, what are you doing here?" he demanded. "I told you to let me handle this." Linda turned to him, her voice pleading. "I'm trying to save your marriage, Martin, to keep our family together." Martin ran a hand through his hair, looking desperate. "Elaine, please, can we talk about this? There has to be a way to work things out." I felt cornered, overwhelmed. "Both of you need to leave. Now." "Not until you agree to give our marriage another chance," Martin insisted. "Another chance?" Olivia's voice rang out. She stood in the hallway, tears streaming down her face. "After everything he's done?" Martin's face crumpled. "Liv, sweetheart, I know I made a terrible mistake, but I love you and your mother more than anything." "Then why did you do it?" Olivia screamed. "Why did you ruin everything?" The room fell silent, the weight of Olivia's pain hanging heavy in the air. I moved to comfort her, but she jerked away. "I hate you," she spat at Martin. "I hate all of this." Before anyone could react, Olivia bolted for the door, shoving past Martin and Linda. "Olivia!" I cried, racing after her, but by the time I reached the street, she was gone, swallowed up by the busy city around us. I turned back to Martin and Linda, my heart pounding with fear and fury. "Are you happy now? Is this what you wanted?" As they stared at me, shock written across their faces, I made a decision. No more playing nice, no more trying to keep the peace. "I want both of you out of my apartment and out of our lives," I said, my voice cold. "And if anything happens to my daughter, I swear to God I'll make you regret the day you ever met me." My heart raced as I dialed Olivia's number for the 100th time. Straight to voicemail. Again. It had been hours since she ran off, and the sun was setting, casting long shadows across our new neighborhood. "Anything?" Martin asked, his voice tight with worry. I shook my head, fighting back tears. Despite everything, we'd come together to search for our daughter. Even Linda was out there, checking Olivia's favorite spots from our old neighborhood. Just as I was about to suggest calling the police, my phone buzzed. A text from Teresa. "Olivia's here. She's safe." Relief washed over me, quickly followed by a new wave of anxiety. "She's at Teresa's," I told Martin. "I'm going to get her." "I'm coming with you," he insisted. Too exhausted to argue, I nodded. The car ride was tense, neither of us speaking. When we pulled up to Teresa's house, I saw Olivia sitting on the porch steps, her eyes red and puffy. As soon as she saw us, she stood, her body tense. "I'm not going back," she declared. I approached slowly, hands raised. "Liv, honey, we were so worried. Are you okay?" She crossed her arms, glaring at Martin. "I'm fine. I just needed to get away from everything." Martin stepped forward. Olivia, I'm so sorry. I know I've hurt you, but please, can we talk about this? Olivia's eyes flashed with anger. Talk about what, Dad? How you threw away our family for some woman? How you're having a baby with her? I saw Martin flinch at her words. Good. Let him feel the pain he'd caused us. It's not that simple, Martin began, but I cut him off. No, Martin, it is that simple. You made your choices, and now we're all living with the consequences. Just then, Linda's car screeched to a halt behind ours. She burst out, her face a mix of relief and determination. Oh, thank God you're all right, she said to Olivia. Then she turned to me, her expression hardening. Elaine, this has gone on long enough. We need to fix this family now. I felt my temper rising. Fix it? How exactly do you propose we do that, Linda? To my shock, Martin stepped forward, taking my hand. By remarrying, he said softly. Elaine, I know I've made terrible mistakes, but I love you. I love our family. Please give me another chance. I jerked my hand away, stunned. Are you out of your mind? Linda nodded enthusiastically. It's the perfect solution. We can have a small ceremony, renew your vows, show Olivia that love can overcome anything. I laughed bitterly. Love? This isn't about love. This is about you trying to save face, to pretend everything's fine when it's not. Martin's face hardened. Fine. If you won't consider remarriage, then I want to be compensated for the wedding expenses. After all, you're the one ending this marriage. I stared at him, incredulous. Excuse me? You heard me? He said, his voice cold. I spent a fortune on our wedding. If you're throwing that away, I want to be reimbursed. The absurdity of it all hit me like a tidal wave. I felt a hysterical laugh bubbling up in my throat. You want me to pay you for a wedding that happened over 20 years ago? After you cheated on me? Linda stepped in, her voice soothing. Now, Elaine, let's be reasonable. Martin's just trying to protect himself financially. You can't blame him for that. I looked from Martin to Linda to Olivia, who stood frozen, her eyes wide with disbelief. In that moment, something inside me snapped. Get out, I said, my voice low and dangerous. All of you, get out of my sight before I do something I'll regret. Martin opened his mouth to argue, but Olivia cut him off. Just go, Dad. You've done enough damage. As Martin and Linda retreated to their cars, I turned to Olivia, my heart breaking for her all over again. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I never wanted any of this for you. Olivia's eyes met mine, filled with a mixture of pain and determination. I know, Mom, but we're going to be okay, right? Just you and me? I pulled her into a fierce hug, feeling her trembling against me. Yes, baby, we're going to be okay. I promise. As we stood there holding each other, I knew the fight was far from over, but for the first time in months I felt a glimmer of hope. Whatever came next, Olivia and I would face it together. I stood in the courtroom, my heart pounding as the judge reviewed our case. Olivia sat beside me, her hand clasped tightly in mine. Across the aisle, Martin glared daggers at us, Linda whispering furiously in his ear. Just as the judge was about to speak, the courtroom doors burst open. My father, Kenneth, strode in, his face set with determination. Your Honor, he called out, I have evidence that's crucial to this case. The judge frowned but nodded. Proceed, Mr. Lawson. Dad approached the bench, handing over a thick folder. These are financial records showing that Martin Henderson has been embezzling from his company for years. The money he claims my daughter owes him for their wedding, it was stolen funds. The courtroom erupted in gasps and murmurs. I stared at Martin, shocked. His face had gone pale, his eyes wide with panic. That's a lie, he shouted, jumping to his feet. Your Honor, this is a desperate attempt to— Sit down, Mr. Henderson, the judge ordered sharply. She flipped through the documents, her expression growing more severe by the second. I leaned over to Dad, whispering, How did you get this? He squeezed my shoulder. I've had my suspicions for years, Elaine. When I heard about his ridiculous demands, I knew it was time to dig deeper. The judge cleared her throat, silencing the room. In light of this new evidence, I'm ordering a full investigation into Mr. Henderson's finances. As for the divorce settlement. She turned to me, her eyes kind but firm. Mrs. Henderson, you are granted full custody of your daughter, Olivia. Mr. Henderson will pay alimony and child support as originally outlined. His claim for reimbursement of wedding expenses is denied. Relief washed over me. It was over. We had won. As we left the courtroom, Martin caught up to us, his face a mask of desperation. Elaine, please, you can't do this to me, to our family. I turned to face him, feeling a strength I hadn't known I possessed. Our family? You destroyed our family the moment you decided to cheat, Martin, and now you'll have to live with the consequences. Linda appeared at his side, her face twisted with anger. This isn't over, Elaine. We'll appeal. No, Mom, Martin interrupted, his shoulders sagging in defeat. It's over. As they walked away, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Olivia hugged me tightly, tears in her eyes. We did it, Mom. We're free. Dad wrapped his arms around both of us. I'm so proud of you, Elaine. You stood your ground, fought for what was right. Months passed, and life settled into a new rhythm. Olivia and I thrived in our apartment, building a life filled with laughter and love. We heard through the grapevine that Martin had lost his job and was facing criminal charges for embezzlement. Linda had retreated to Florida, humiliated by the scandal. One sunny afternoon, as Olivia and I walked through the park near our new home, she turned to me with a serious expression. Mom, I want you to know, I'm okay. About Dad, I'm still angry, but I'm not letting it consume me anymore. I pulled her close, marveling at her strength and maturity. I'm so proud of you, sweetie. We've both come a long way, haven't we? She nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. Yeah, we have, and you know what? I think we're going to be just fine. As we continued our walk, I reflected on the tumultuous journey we'd been through. The pain, the betrayal, the fights. They had all led us here, to this moment of peace and understanding. I thought about the woman I was when this all began. Scared, hurt, unsure of my future. Now, I stood tall, confident in my ability to face whatever life threw my way. Olivia and I had emerged stronger, our bond unbreakable. The path ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time in years, I felt truly hopeful. We had weathered the storm, and now, bathed in the warm sunlight of a new beginning, I knew that the best was yet to come. As we rounded the corner towards home, I squeezed Olivia's hand, feeling a surge of love and gratitude. Whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together, two strong, resilient women ready to write the next chapter of our lives on our own terms. The sound of shattering glass jolted me from my daydream. I rushed to the kitchen, my heart pounding, only to find Lucas standing amidst a sea of broken shards, his face contorted with anger. Damn it, Farah. Can't you buy decent glasses for once? He snarled, his eyes blazing with contempt. I bit my lip, fighting back the urge to remind him that those were the expensive crystal glasses his mother had given us for our wedding. Instead, I grabbed the broom and dustpan, my hands trembling slightly as I began to sweep up the mess. I'm sorry, honey. I'll order new ones tomorrow, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Lucas scoffed, stepping over the glass fragments as if they were beneath his notice. Don't bother. I'll take care of it myself. God knows you can't be trusted with anything important. His words stung, but I swallowed the hurt. This wasn't the man I'd married 10 years ago. Something had changed, and I couldn't quite put my finger on what it was. As I finished cleaning up, I heard the front door open and close. Sophia, our 8-year-old daughter, burst into the kitchen, her backpack bouncing against her small frame. Mommy, Daddy, I got an A on my science project, she exclaimed, her face beaming with pride. I forced a smile, pushing aside my troubled thoughts. That's wonderful, sweetheart. I'm so proud of you. Lucas barely glanced up from his phone. That's nice, princess. Now go wash up for dinner. Sophia's smile faltered for a moment, but she nodded and scampered off to the bathroom. I watched her go, a familiar ache settling in my chest. When had Lucas become so dismissive of our daughter's achievements? As I started preparing dinner, my phone buzzed with a text from my mother, Olivia. How are things, dear? Still coming over this weekend to help with the bakery inventory? I smiled, grateful for the distraction. The family bakery had been our pride and joy for generations, and even though Lucas sneered at it, I couldn't imagine my life without it. Of course, Mom. Wouldn't miss it for the world, I typed back. Just then, Lucas strode into the kitchen, his suit jacket slung over his shoulder. I'm heading out, don't wait up. I frowned, setting down the knife I'd been using to chop vegetables. But it's Tuesday. We always have family dinner on Tuesdays. He rolled his eyes, already halfway out the door. Some of us have real jobs, Farah. I can't waste time playing house. The door slammed shut behind him, leaving me standing alone in the suddenly too quiet kitchen. I leaned against the counter, trying to steady my breathing. This wasn't the first time Lucas had blown off our family commitments, but something about tonight felt different. As I resumed cooking, my mind wandered to the past few months. Lucas's late nights at the office? The hushed phone calls, the way he always seemed to smell of unfamiliar perfume. A nagging suspicion had been growing in the back of my mind, but I'd been too afraid to confront it. Later that night, after tucking Sophia into bed, I found myself drawn to Lucas's home office. I knew I shouldn't snoop, but the need for answers overwhelmed my better judgment. As I rifled through his desk drawers, my hand brushed against something smooth and glossy. With trembling fingers, I pulled out a stack of photographs. My breath caught in my throat as I flipped through them, each image a dagger to my heart. There was Lucas, arm in arm with a stunning blonde woman, laughing and kissing in various romantic settings. The last photo slipped from my numb fingers, floating to the floor like a fallen leaf. As I bent to pick it up, I noticed something scrawled on the back in unfamiliar handwriting. To my darling Elle, can't wait for our next adventure. All my love, Cassandra. The world seemed to tilt on its axis as the truth I'd been avoiding for months finally crashed down around me. My husband, the father of my child, was having an affair. The morning after my devastating discovery, I stumbled through our usual routine in a daze. As I poured cereal for Sophia, Lucas sauntered into the kitchen, looking infuriatingly composed. "Daddy, can you come to my dance recital next week?" Sophia asked, her eyes bright with hope. Lucas barely glanced up from his phone. "Sorry, Princess, Daddy's got an important business trip." I couldn't hold my tongue any longer. "Really, Lucas? Another business trip with Cassandra?" His head snapped up, eyes narrowing. "What did you say?" "You heard me," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. "I know about the affair." Lucas's face contorted with rage. "You've been snooping through my things? Mommy? Daddy? What's going on?" Sophia's small voice quivered. I forced a smile. "Nothing, sweetie. Finish your breakfast and get ready for school." As soon as Sophia left for the bus, Lucas unleashed his fury. "You think you're so clever, don't you? Digging through my private stuff like some desperate housewife." "I'm not the one cheating, Lucas," I shot back. He sneered. "Maybe if you weren't so caught up in that pathetic little bakery of yours, I wouldn't have to look elsewhere for companionship." His words cut deep, but I refused to let him see how much they hurt. "That pathetic little bakery has been in my family for generations. It's part of who I am." "Well, maybe it's time you grew up and got a real job," he spat, "instead of playing with flour and sugar all day like a child." I felt my anger rising. "That bakery puts food on our table and clothes on Sophia's back. How dare you belittle it?" Lucas laughed coldly. "Please, my salary is what keeps this family afloat. Your little hobby barely covers the cost of ingredients." Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, a smirk playing on his lips. "I've got to go. Some of us have actual work to do." As he stormed out, I sank into a chair, my head in my hands. How had we come to this? Later that afternoon, I threw myself into work at the bakery, trying to lose myself in the familiar rhythms of kneading dough and decorating cakes. My mother, Olivia, noticed my distraction. "Farah, honey, what's wrong?" she asked, her forehead creased with concern. I hesitated, then spilled everything. The affair, Lucas's cruel words, my fears for the future. Olivia listened, her face growing stormy. "That no-good son of a," she began, then caught herself. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. You don't deserve any of this." I wiped away a stray tear. "I just don't know what to do, Mom. For Sophia's sake, I want to make it work, but nothing," Olivia interrupted firmly. "You can't let him treat you this way. You're stronger than that." Just then, the bell above the door chimed. Sophia burst in, followed by Lucas, who wore an expression of exaggerated patience. "Mommy, Daddy's taking me for ice cream," Sophia exclaimed. I raised an eyebrow at Lucas. "Oh, I thought you had actual work to do." He shrugged, a smug smile on his face. "I made time for my little girl, unlike some people who are always stuck in this dump." Olivia bristled beside me, but I placed a calming hand on her arm. "Have fun, sweetie," I said to Sophia, ignoring Lucas's barb. As they left, I caught Lucas whispering to Sophia, "See, Princess, this is why Daddy has to work so hard, so you don't end up stuck in a place like this." My heart clenched as I watched Sophia's brow furrow in confusion. Lucas was trying to turn our daughter against me and the family business. "Oh, Farah," Olivia sighed, pulling me into a hug. "You can't let this go on, for your sake and Sophia's." I nodded, a newfound determination rising within me. "You're right, Mom. It's time I stood up for myself and our family legacy." As I said the words, I felt a shift inside me. The pain and shock were still there, but now they were fuel for a growing fire. Lucas might think he had the upper hand, but he was about to learn that he'd underestimated me and the strength of the Reynolds women. The next morning, I woke up determined to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As I walked into the kitchen, I found Lucas hunched over his laptop, muttering angrily to himself. "Everything all right?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. He glared at me. "Not that you'd care, but I'm having issues at work. Not that you'd understand, given your occupation." I bit back a retort, focusing instead on making Sophia's lunch. As I spread peanut butter on bread, I noticed Lucas watching me with an odd expression. "What?" I asked, suddenly self-conscious. He shook his head. "Nothing, just wondering how you can be content with this." He gestured vaguely around the kitchen. "Don't you want more from life?" His words stung, but I refused to let it show. "I have everything I need right here, Lucas. My family, our daughter, the bakery." "That damn bakery again," he interrupted, slamming his laptop shut. "When are you going to realize it's holding you back, holding us all back?" Before I could respond, Sophia bounded into the kitchen, her backpack bouncing. "Morning, Mommy." "Morning, Daddy." Lucas's demeanor changed instantly, his face softening as he turned to our daughter. "Morning, Princess. Ready for school?" As Sophia chattered about her upcoming day, I couldn't help but notice the stark contrast between Lucas's treatment of her and his attitude towards me. It was as if he was two different people. After dropping Sophia off at school, I headed to the bakery, my mind whirling with conflicting emotions. As I walked in, the familiar scent of freshly baked bread enveloped me, instantly calming my nerves. "Morning, Farah," called Mason, our delivery driver and longtime family friend. "Got a big order coming in today for the Children's Hospital fundraiser." I smiled, grateful for the distraction. "Thanks, Mason. I'll get started on it right away." As I lost myself in the rhythm of measuring, mixing, and kneading, I found my thoughts drifting back to Lucas. Despite his cruel words and actions, I couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper was troubling him. Hours later, as I was putting the finishing touches on a batch of cupcakes, my phone buzzed with a text from Lucas. "Working late. Don't wait up." I sighed, unsurprised but still disappointed. As I showed Mason where to load the boxes for delivery, an idea struck me. "Hey, Mason," I called out. "You've known Lucas for a while, right? Have you noticed anything different about him lately?" Mason hesitated, his usually cheerful face clouding over. "Well, now that you mention it, I did see him at that new fancy bar downtown last week. He seemed pretty worked up about something." My heart sank. Was he alone? Mason's uncomfortable silence was answer enough. I thanked him and retreated to the back office, fighting back tears. As I sat at my desk, surrounded by invoices and order forms, a strange calm settled over me. For the first time, I saw Lucas's behavior for what it truly was. Not just cruelty or dissatisfaction, but a deep-seated insecurity. I thought back to our early days together, how proud he'd been of my family's bakery, how he'd boasted to his friends about marrying into a sweet family. When had that pride turned to resentment? A memory surfaced. Lucas's father, a stern businessman, sneering at our wedding cake. "Cute," he'd said, his voice dripping with disdain. "But when are you going to get a real job, son?" Suddenly, Lucas's recent behavior began to make a twisted kind of sense. His father's disapproval, the pressure to climb the corporate ladder, the constant comparisons to his more successful colleagues, it all added up to a man desperately trying to prove his worth. As this realization dawned on me, I felt a mix of emotions: anger at his treatment of me, pity for his insecurities, and a newfound determination to stand my ground. Just then, my phone buzzed again. It was Lucas. "We need to talk. Meet me at the house in an hour." My heart raced as I read the message. Something in his tone felt different, urgent. As I locked up the bakery and headed home, I steeled myself for whatever was coming. One thing was certain. I wasn't going to let Lucas's insecurities destroy everything I held dear. It was time to fight for my family, my business, and myself. I arrived home, my heart pounding with anticipation. The house was eerily quiet as I stepped inside. "Lucas?" I called out. my voice echoing through the empty rooms. "In here," came his gruff reply from his home office. I found him hunched over his desk, surrounded by stacks of papers. He barely looked up as I entered. "What's going on, Lucas?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He sighed heavily, finally meeting my gaze. "I've been passed over for the promotion at work, again." For a moment, I felt a twinge of sympathy. Then I remembered his recent behavior and steeled myself. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said carefully, "but that doesn't explain why you've been treating me and the bakery with such contempt lately." Lucas's face darkened. "That's just it, Farah. Don't you see? While I'm busting my ass trying to climb the corporate ladder, you're content to play around in that quaint little bakery of yours. It's embarrassing." His words hit me like a slap in the face. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Mason. "Farah, we need to talk. It's about Lucas. Can you meet me at the bakery ASAP?" I glanced at Lucas, who had returned to his papers, dismissing me entirely. "I have to go," I said. "We'll finish this conversation later." He waved me off without a word. 20 minutes later, I rushed into the bakery, finding Mason pacing nervously by the counter. "What's going on?" I asked, my stomach knotting with dread. Mason's face was grim as he handed me a folder. "I overheard something at the bar last night. Lucas was there, bragging to some guys about how he was going to take care of the bakery problem once and for all." My hands shook as I opened the folder. Inside were copies of emails, all from Lucas's work account, detailing a plan to sabotage our upcoming contract with Sweetheart's Children's Hospital, our biggest client to date. "He's been spreading rumors about food safety violations," Mason explained, his voice tight with anger. "He's trying to get the hospital to cancel their order and blacklist us." I sank into a nearby chair, my mind reeling. But why? Why would he do this? Mason's expression softened. "From what I gathered, if he succeeds in tanking your business, he'll get that promotion he's been after. Something about proving his business acumen by eliminating local competition." Tears stung my eyes as the full weight of Lucas's betrayal hit me. Not only was he cheating on me, but he was actively trying to destroy my family's legacy, all for a promotion. Just then, my mother burst through the door, her face flushed with worry. "Farah, honey, I just heard from Mrs. Tompkins at the hospital. They're considering canceling our contract due to some rumors about—" She stopped short when she saw my face. "Oh, Sweetheart? You know, don't you?" I nodded, unable to speak through the lump in my throat. Olivia wrapped her arms around me, holding me close as I finally let the tears fall. After a few moments, I pulled away, wiping my eyes. "What are we going to do, Mom? If we lose this contract, the bakery might not survive." Olivia's eyes flashed with determination. "We're going to fight, that's what. No son-in-law of mine is going to destroy what this family has built over generations." Mason nodded in agreement. "I'm with you, Farah. We'll gather evidence that'll clear our name with the hospital and expose Lucas for the snake he is." As I looked between my mother and Mason, I felt a surge of gratitude for their unwavering support. But beneath that, a fierce anger began to burn. Lucas had underestimated me, thinking I'd roll over and let him destroy everything I loved. Well, he was about to learn just how wrong he was. "Okay," I said, standing up straight and squaring my shoulders. "Let's do this. It's time to show Lucas that he messed with the wrong family." As we began to formulate our plan, I realized that this wasn't just about saving the bakery anymore. It was about standing up for myself, my family, and everything we believed in. Lucas had started this war, but I was damn well going to finish it. The next morning, I woke up with a renewed sense of purpose. As I walked into the bakery, Olivia was already there, poring over documents spread across the counter. "Morning, honey," she said, looking up. "I've been thinking about our situation with Lucas. We need a plan." I nodded, pouring myself a cup of coffee. "I know, Mom, but where do we even start?" Just then, Mason burst through the door, his face flushed with excitement. "I think I've got something," he said, waving a stack of papers. "Remember those emails I showed you? Well, I did some digging, and it turns out Lucas has been using company resources to orchestrate this whole scheme." My heart raced as I scanned the documents Mason had brought. There, in black and white, was evidence of Lucas's betrayal, not just of me and our family, but of his own company. "This is it," I breathed. "This is how we stop him." Olivia's eyes gleamed with determination. We need to act fast. If we can prove Lucas has been misusing company resources, we might be able to discredit him before he can do any more damage to the bakery. As we huddled together, formulating our plan, the bakery phone rang. I answered it, my stomach dropping as I recognized the voice on the other end. Mrs. Reynolds? This is Dr. Simmons from Sweethearts Children's Hospital. We need to discuss some concerns that have been brought to our attention regarding your bakery. I swallowed hard, fighting to keep my voice steady. Of course, Dr. Simmons, what seems to be the problem? As she detailed the false allegations Lucas had spread, I felt a mix of anger and desperation rising within me. This contract was everything to us. Losing it could mean the end of the bakery. After assuring Dr. Simmons that we would address her concerns immediately, I hung up and turned to face my mother and Mason. We're running out of time, I said, my voice shaking. If we don't act now, we'll lose everything. Olivia squeezed my hand. Then we act now. Mason, can you get those documents to Lucas's company? Mason nodded. I've got a contact in their HR department. I'll make sure they see this today. As Mason left on his mission, Olivia turned to me, her eyes serious. Farrah, honey, there's something else we need to discuss. Sophia? My heart clenched at the mention of my daughter's name. In all the chaos, I'd almost forgotten how this would affect her. What about her? I asked, dreading the answer. Olivia sighed. If we go through with this, if we expose Lucas, it's going to change everything. Are you prepared for what that might mean for Sophia? The weight of her words hit me like a ton of bricks. I sank into a nearby chair, my mind reeling. On one hand, exposing Lucas's deceit could save our family business and protect us from further harm. On the other, it would undoubtedly shatter Sophia's world. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from Lucas. Picking up Sophia from school, taking her for ice cream to celebrate my big news. Don't wait up. My blood boiled as I read his message. Even now, he was using our daughter as a pawn in his game. In that moment, something inside me snapped. I stood up, my resolve hardening. We're doing this, I said, my voice firm. For Sophia, for the bakery, for everything our family has built. Lucas doesn't get to destroy all of that just because he's insecure about his own failures. Olivia nodded, a proud smile on her face. That's my girl, so what's our next move? I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. We gather every piece of evidence we have, emails, financial records, witness statements, everything. Then, we present it all to Lucas's company and the hospital. We show them who he really is and what he's been doing. As I spoke, I felt a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. This was it, the point of no return. Whatever happened next would change our lives forever. And Sophia? Olivia asked gently. I closed my eyes for a moment, my heart aching for my little girl. We'll protect her as best we can, but she deserves to grow up seeing what real strength and integrity look like. And that starts with us standing up to Lucas. With our course set, we threw ourselves into action. As I gathered documents and made calls, I couldn't help but think about Lucas, wondering if he had any idea of the storm that was about to hit him. One thing was certain. He was about to learn that underestimating me was the biggest mistake he'd ever made. The next morning dawned with an air of anticipation. I arrived at the bakery early, my nerves on edge as I waited for news from Mason. Olivia was already there, her face etched with worry. Any word yet? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She shook her head. Nothing, but Mason said he'd call as soon as he heard anything. As if on cue, my phone buzzed. It was Mason. It's done, he said, his voice tight with excitement. Lucas's company has the evidence. They're calling him in for a meeting right now. My heart raced as I relayed the news to Olivia. This was it, the moment of truth. Hours ticked by agonizingly slowly as we waited for more information. I threw myself into work, desperately trying to distract myself from the knot of anxiety in my stomach. Just after lunch, the bakery door flew open. Lucas stormed in, his face contorted with rage. You! He snarled, pointing an accusing finger at me. You did this. I stood my ground, meeting his gaze steadily. Did what, Lucas? Tell the truth? He lunged forward, slamming his fists on the counter. They demoted me, took away my bonus, my office, everything, and it's all your fault. Olivia stepped between us, her voice cold. I think you'll find it's your own fault, Lucas. You made your choices. Lucas's eyes darted between us, realization dawning on his face. You knew about everything. "We know about the affair, Lucas," I said, my voice stronger than I felt, "and about your plan to sabotage our business. It's over." For a moment, Lucas seemed to deflate. Then his face hardened. "You think you've won? This isn't over. I'll make sure you lose everything, the bakery, Sophia, all of it." As he stormed out, the bell above the door jangling violently, I felt a strange mix of relief and dread wash over me. Olivia squeezed my hand. "You did it, honey. You stood up to him." But our moment of victory was short-lived. My phone rang. It was Dr. Simmons from the hospital. "Mrs. Reynolds," she said, her voice grave. "We've received some concerning information about your bakery. I'm afraid we'll have to cancel our contract immediately." My world seemed to tilt on its axis. But we addressed all your concerns. We proved those allegations were false." "I'm sorry," Dr. Simmons replied, "but we can't risk any negative publicity. It's out of my hands." As I hung up, tears stinging my eyes, Mason burst through the door. "Farah, you need to see this." He held up his phone, showing me a local news website. There, in bold letters, was the headline, "Local Bakery Embroiled in Food Safety Scandal." "It's everywhere," Mason said, his voice tight. "Social media, news sites, Lucas must have had this ready to go as a backup plan." I sank into a chair, my head spinning. We'd exposed Lucas's deceit, but at what cost? Our reputation was in tatters, our biggest contract lost. How could we possibly recover from this? As if things couldn't get worse, my phone buzzed with a text from Sophia's school. "Mrs. Reynolds, please come immediately. There's been an incident involving your daughter." Panic gripped me as I grabbed my keys. What had Lucas done now? Olivia caught my arm as I rushed past. "Farah, wait. Whatever happens, remember, you're stronger than you know. We'll get through this together." I nodded, trying to draw strength from her words. As I drove to Sophia's school, my mind raced. Lucas had thrown everything he had at us, and for a moment it seemed like he might win. But as I pulled into the school parking lot, a newfound determination welled up inside me. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about Sophia, about our family legacy, about standing up to bullies like Lucas. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for whatever came next. Lucas might think he'd won this round, but I was far from defeated. The real fight was just beginning. And I was ready for it. I burst through the school doors, my heart pounding. The principal's secretary ushered me into the office, where I found Sophia sitting quietly, her eyes red and puffy. "Mrs. Reynolds," the principal began, her face grave, "there's been an incident. Sophia got into an altercation with another student." I knelt beside my daughter, gently taking her hand. "Sweetie, what happened?" Sophia's lip quivered. "Tommy said our bakery makes people sick. He said Daddy told his dad so. I pushed him." My blood ran cold. Lucas had stooped so low as to use our daughter in his vendetta against me. "I'm so sorry," I said to the principal. "We're going through a difficult time at home. It won't happen again." As we left the school, my phone buzzed incessantly with calls from worried customers and friends. The damage Lucas had done was spreading like wildfire. Back at the bakery, Olivia and Mason were fielding a barrage of calls and social media messages. The atmosphere was tense, bordering on panic. "Farah," Mason said, his voice strained, "we're losing customers by the minute. If this keeps up..." I nodded, understanding the unspoken implication. Our bakery, our legacy, was on the brink of collapse. Just then, the bell above the door chimed. Lucas sauntered in, a smug smile on his face. "Well, well," he drawled, "quite the busy day you're having." Rage boiled inside me. "How dare you," I hissed. "How dare you use our daughter in your sick game?" Lucas's smile faltered for a moment. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Cut the act, Lucas," I snapped. "I know everything. The affair, the sabotage, all of it. And now this. Turning our community against us? Using Sophia?" For a moment, Lucas looked taken aback. Then his face hardened. "You brought this on yourself, Farah. If you'd just given up this pathetic little bakery like I asked..." "Enough," I shouted, surprising even myself with the force of my voice. "I've had enough of your lies, your manipulation, your cruelty." I stormed to the back office, yanking open a drawer. When I returned, I slapped a thick envelope on the counter between us. "What's this?" Lucas asked, eyeing it warily. "Divorce papers," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "I want you out of our lives, Lucas. For good." Lucas's face contorted with rage. He lunged forward, grabbing my wrist. "You can't do this to me," he snarled. Suddenly, Mason was there, pulling Lucas away. "That's enough, man. It's over. As Mason escorted a fuming Lucas out, I turned to find Sophia standing in the doorway, her eyes wide with fear and confusion. "Mom?" she whispered. "Are you and Daddy getting divorced?" My heart shattered. This was the moment I'd been dreading. The moment where I had to shatter my daughter's world to save our future. I knelt down, pulling her into a tight hug. "Oh, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. Sometimes grown-ups can't stay together, even if they both love their children very much." As Sophia sobbed in my arms, I looked up to see Olivia and Mason watching us, their faces a mix of sympathy and determination. "What do we do now?" Mason asked quietly. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "We fight back. We tell our side of the story. We show this community who we really are." Olivia nodded, a fierce pride in her eyes. "That's my girl. We're Reynolds women. We don't give up." As I held my daughter close, comforting her through her tears, I felt a strange sense of calm settle over me. The road ahead would be difficult, filled with legal battles, rebuilding our reputation, and helping Sophia navigate this new reality. But for the first time in years, I felt truly free. Free from Lucas's manipulation, free from the constant fear and doubt. Whatever came next, I knew I had the strength to face it. I looked around at my family, not just Sophia and Olivia, but Mason too, who had stood by us through everything. This was what mattered. This was worth fighting for. "All right," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "Let's get to work. We have a bakery to save and a future to build." As we began to plan our next moves, I realized that this wasn't just about saving the bakery anymore. It was about reclaiming our lives, our dignity, and our right to happiness. Lucas had tried to break us, but he'd only made us stronger. The real battle was just beginning, and I was ready for it. 6 months after I handed Lucas those divorce papers, I stood in the newly expanded Reynolds family bakery, marveling at how much had changed. The aroma of fresh bread and sweet pastries filled the air, a comforting reminder of our resilience. The bell above the door chimed, and I turned to see Dr. Simmons from Sweetheart's Children's Hospital walk in, a warm smile on her face. "Mrs. Reynolds," she said, extending her hand. "Or should I say, Miss Reynolds now?" I shook her hand, returning the smile. "Farah, please. It's good to see you, Dr. Simmons." She looked around approvingly. "I must say I'm impressed. After everything that happened, to see you not just recover, but thrive, it's remarkable." I felt a surge of pride. The past months had been a whirlwind of legal battles, community outreach, and tireless work to rebuild our reputation. But we'd done it. We'd not only salvaged our business, but expanded it. "We couldn't have done it without the community's support," I said. "And yours." Renewing our contract meant everything to us. Dr. Simmons nodded. "Well, when the truth came out about your ex-husband's deception, it was the least we could do. Those children love your treats too much for us to let a few lies get in the way." As if on cue, Sophia burst through the door, her face flushed with excitement. "Mom, Grandma, guess what? I got the lead in the school play." I scooped her up in a hug, my heart swelling with love and pride. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. I'm so proud of you." As I set her down, I caught sight of Lucas's parents entering the bakery. Despite everything that had happened with Lucas, they had remained a constant, loving presence in Sophia's life. I was grateful for that, for Sophia's sake. "Go say hi to Nana and Papa," I told Sophia, watching as she ran to embrace them. Olivia appeared at my side, wiping flour from her hands onto her apron. "Look at her," she said softly. "She's flourishing, Farah. You both are." I nodded, feeling a lump form in my throat. The journey hadn't been easy, but seeing Sophia happy and thriving made it all worth it. Just then Mason walked in, a newspaper tucked under his arm. "Have you seen this?" he asked, handing it to me. The headline read, "Local man arrested for corporate espionage and fraud." Below was a photo of Lucas being led away in handcuffs. I skimmed the article, my hands shaking slightly. Lucas's attempts to sabotage our business had led to a wider investigation, uncovering years of fraudulent activities at his company. He was facing serious jail time. "Are you okay?" Mason asked, his voice laced with concern. I took a deep breath, surprised to find that I felt relieved. "I am," I said, realizing it was true. "It's over, really over." As I looked around the bakery, at Sophia laughing with her grandparents, at Olivia chatting with regular customers, at Mason's supportive presence beside me, I felt a profound sense of peace wash over me. This was my family. This was my legacy. and I had fought tooth and nail to protect it. "You know," I said to Mason, "I used to think strength meant never showing weakness, never asking for help, but now I realize true strength is in vulnerability, in leaning on others when you need to, and in standing up for what's right, no matter the cost." Mason squeezed my shoulder. "You're the strongest person I know, Farah." As the day wound down and we closed up shop, I found myself alone in the bakery. I ran my hand along the smooth countertop, thinking of all the generations of Reynolds women who had stood in this very spot. I thought of the challenges we'd faced, the battles we'd won, and the bright future ahead of us. I thought of Sophia and the example I hoped I was setting for her. And for the first time in a long time, I felt truly, completely at peace. Whatever life threw at us next, I knew we could handle it. Because we were Reynolds women. And Reynolds women don't break. We rise. With a smile on my face and hope in my heart, I turned off the lights and stepped out into the cool evening air, ready to embrace whatever tomorrow might bring. The letter trembled in my hands, its crisp edges a stark contrast to the turmoil it unleashed within me. I read it again, hoping the words would somehow rearrange themselves into a less disruptive message. They didn't. "Jenny, what's wrong?" Paul's voice cut through my daze. I looked up to see my husband's concerned face, his brow furrowed as he took in my expression. I swallowed hard. "It's about your mother, Paul. She's been evicted. She's homeless." Paul's face hardened instantly, a mix of anger and something else. Guilt, perhaps, flashing across his features. "What? How's that even possible? She's always been so particular about her finances." I handed him the letter, watching as he scanned its contents. His jaw clenched tighter with each line. "Well," he said finally, tossing the letter onto the kitchen counter, "I suppose she's made her bed. Now she can lie in it." "Paul," I began, my voice gentle but firm, "she's your mother. We can't just—" "Can't we?" he interrupted, his tone sharp. "After everything she's done? The years of neglect, the criticism, the—" "Mommy? Daddy?" Our daughter's small voice drifted down the stairs. "Why are you yelling?" Paul's expression softened immediately. "It's nothing, sweetheart. Go back to bed." I waited until I heard her door close before continuing. "I know your relationship with Mildred is complicated, but she's family, Paul. We can't leave her on the streets." He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in every movement. "What are you suggesting, Jenny? That we invite her to live with us? Because I can tell you right now, that's not happening." I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the words I knew I had to say. "Actually, that's exactly what I'm suggesting." Paul's eyes widened in disbelief. "You can't be serious." "I am," I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. "It's the right thing to do." "The right thing?" Paul scoffed. "Was it the right thing when she missed our wedding, or when she criticized every decision we've ever made?" I reached out, taking his hand in mine. "I know it's not ideal, but she's still your mother, Paul, and right now, she needs us." He pulled away, pacing the kitchen. "You don't know her like I do, Jenny. She'll take advantage of your kindness. She always does." "Then we'll set boundaries," I insisted. "We'll make it clear that this is temporary, that there are rules she needs to follow." Paul stopped, leaning against the counter. For a long moment he said nothing, just stared at the discarded letter. Finally he sighed. "I can't believe I'm even considering this." I moved closer, wrapping my arms around him. "We'll get through it together. I promise." He hugged me back, his embrace tight. "You're too good for this family, you know that?" I laughed softly. "I'm just doing what any decent person would do." As we stood there in our kitchen, the weight of our decision settling around us, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were about to invite a storm into our home. But I pushed the thought aside. This was the right thing to do. It had to be. Little did I know as I drifted off to sleep that night that my act of compassion would soon become the greatest test our family had ever faced, and that the woman I was trying to save would become the very threat I needed saving from. The day Mildred arrived, our house seemed to shrink. I stood in the doorway, watching Paul help his mother up the front steps, her frail form leaning heavily on his arm. My daughter, Emily, peeked out from behind me, her eyes wide with curiosity. "Welcome, Mildred," I said, forcing a smile. "We're glad you're here." Mildred's gaze swept over me, then settled on Emily. "Well, aren't you a pretty little thing?" she cooed, her voice syrupy sweet. "Come give your grandma a hug." Emily hesitated, looking up at me. I nodded encouragingly, even as a knot formed in my stomach. As Emily stepped forward, Mildred enveloped her in a tight embrace. "My, you're awfully thin," Mildred remarked, her eyes darting to me. "Don't they feed you, child?" I felt my cheeks flush. "Emily eats just fine, Mildred. She's perfectly healthy." Paul cleared his throat. "Let's get you settled, Mom. Jenny's prepared the guest room for you." As they disappeared upstairs, I retreated to the kitchen, busying myself with dinner preparations. The sound of Mildred's laughter drifted down, mingling with Emily's excited chatter. I tried to focus on the vegetables I was chopping, but my mind kept wandering to the changes this new arrangement would bring. Later that evening, after Emily was tucked in bed, the three of us sat in the living room. An uncomfortable silence stretched between us. "I can't thank you both enough," Mildred finally said, her eyes glistening. "I know I haven't been the best mother, Paul, or the best mother-in-law, Jenny. But I want you to know how truly sorry I am for my past behavior." Paul shifted in his seat. "Mom, we don't need to." "No, please," Mildred interrupted. "Let me say this. I've made so many mistakes, pushed away the people I love most, but being here, seeing your beautiful family, it's made me realize what truly matters." I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this could work after all. "We're happy to help, Mildred. Family is important." Mildred reached out, clasping my hand. "You're an angel, Jenny. I don't deserve such kindness." The next morning, I woke early to prepare breakfast before work. To my surprise, Mildred was already in the kitchen, a stack of pancakes on the table. "Oh, good morning," I said, startled. "You didn't have to do this." Mildred waved her hand dismissively. "Nonsense. It's the least I can do. Besides, I noticed you didn't have any real maple syrup, so I used some honey I found. Much healthier for Emily, don't you think?" I bit back a retort about Emily's carefully planned diet. "That's thoughtful of you." As we ate, Mildred regaled us with stories from Paul's childhood. It was nice seeing Paul laugh at the memories, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. That afternoon, I returned from work to find the house spotless. Mildred beamed at me from the couch where she sat folding laundry. "I hope you don't mind," she said. "I just wanted to help out." "Not at all," I replied, even as I noticed my favorite blouse, now shrunken and misshapen. "Thank you." Days passed, and Mildred's presence became increasingly noticeable. She rearranged the kitchen cabinets for better efficiency. She suggested improvements to Emily's bedtime routine. She even offered to update our family budget. Each change was small, each suggestion seemingly well-intentioned, but together they felt like a slow erosion of the life Paul and I had built. One evening, as I prepared dinner, Mildred hovered nearby. "You know, dear," she began, her tone casual, "I've always found that a pinch of nutmeg really elevates a pasta sauce." I gripped the spoon tighter. "This is how Paul likes it." "Oh, of course," Mildred said, patting my arm. "I'm sure you know best. It's just, well, Paul always loved my cooking growing up, but I'm sure your way is fine." As I stirred the sauce, I caught my reflection in the window. The woman staring back looked tired, frustrated, and increasingly unsure of herself. I wondered how long I could keep up this balancing act before something or someone snapped. The sound of shattering glass jolted me awake. I bolted upright, heart pounding, to find Mildred standing in the doorway of our bedroom, a broken picture frame at her feet. "Oh, I'm so sorry," she simpered, not sounding sorry at all. "I was just dusting, and it slipped." I glanced at the clock, 5:30 a.m. "Mildred, what are you doing up so early?" She bent to pick up the shards, skiing. "Well, someone has to keep this house in order. Lord knows you don't have the time, what with your career and all." Paul stirred beside me. "What's going on?" "It's nothing, dear," Mildred cooed. "Go back to sleep. Jenny and I were just discussing her unique approach to housekeeping." I bit my tongue, forcing a smile. "I've got this, Mildred. Why don't you go start breakfast?" As she left, I examined the broken frame. It was our wedding photo. The day unraveled from there. At breakfast, Mildred accidentally spilled coffee on my work blouse. Then she questioned my decision to let Emily wear shorts to school. "It's supposed to be 80 degrees today," I explained, exasperated. Mildred raised an eyebrow. "In my day, young ladies dressed modestly, but I suppose times have changed." Paul, engrossed in his newspaper, seemed oblivious to the tension. At work, I couldn't focus. My phone buzzed incessantly with texts from Mildred, each one a thinly veiled criticism. By lunchtime, I was a bundle of nerves. "Jenny, My colleague Sarah touched my arm. "Are you okay? You seem off." I forced a laugh. "Just family stuff, nothing I can't handle." But as the day wore on, I wasn't so sure. Arriving home, I found the house in chaos. Emily was watching TV, homework forgotten, dishes piled in the sink, and Mildred, she sat in my favorite chair, flipping through our family photo album. "Oh, Jenny," she said, not looking up, "I'm glad you're home. I was just thinking how lovely it would be to redecorate. This room is so dated." I took a deep breath. "Mildred, where's Paul?" "He called to say he'd be late, some work emergency." She waved her hand dismissively. Men and their careers, always so important. The implication hung in the air. I busied myself with the dishes, trying to ignore the growing knot in my stomach. "Mommy?" Emily tugged at my sleeve. "Can we have pizza for dinner?" Before I could answer, Mildred chimed in. Now, Emily, your mother works so hard. I'm sure she'd love to cook us a nice, healthy meal. Isn't that right, Jenny?" I gripped the edge of the sink, knuckles white. "Actually, pizza sounds great. Why don't you order, Mildred? My treat." Mildred's eyes narrowed. "Well, if you insist on feeding your child junk food." That night, after Emily was in bed, I found myself alone with Mildred. Paul was still at work. "Jenny, dear," Mildred began, her voice sickly sweet. "I hope you don't mind me saying, but I've noticed Emily seems a bit behind in her studies. Have you considered tutoring?" I felt something snap inside me. "Emily is doing fine, Mildred. Her teachers say she's excelling." Mildred clicked her tongue. "Oh, I'm sure they do. Teachers these days always coddling children. In my day—" "This isn't your day," I interrupted, surprising myself with my vehemence. "This is our home, our family, and I'd appreciate it if you'd stop undermining every decision I make." Silence fell between us. Mildred's face hardened, the mask of sweetness slipping. "I see," she said coldly. "Well, if that's how you feel, perhaps it was a mistake for me to come here. I'm sure Paul would be interested to hear how you're treating his mother." As if on cue, we heard Paul's key in the lock. Mildred's face instantly transformed, a benign smile replacing the cold fury of moments before. "Paul, darling," she called out, "we're in here. Jenny and I were just having the most interesting chat about family loyalty." I stood there, frozen, as Paul entered the room. The look Mildred shot me was clear. This was war, and she intended to win. The leather-bound journal felt heavy in my hands as I stared at its blank pages. I'd never been one for keeping a diary, but desperate times called for desperate measures. With a deep breath, I put pen to paper. Day 1. Mildred suggested to Paul that I might be overwhelmed and offered to take over meal planning. Paul agreed before I could object. As the days passed, the journal became my sanctuary. Each entry was a silent scream, a record of the slow erosion of my authority in my own home. Day 7. Mildred reorganized my closet. Half my clothes are missing. She claims they were unflattering. Day 12. Found Mildred going through our financial records. She told Paul we're overspending on frivolities. He's now questioning every purchase. One afternoon, I returned from work to find Emily in tears. Mildred stood over her, a stern expression on her face. "What's going on?" I demanded, rushing to comfort my daughter. Mildred sniffed. "I was just explaining to Emily that her artwork isn't quite up to par for her age. Honesty is important, Jenny." I felt a surge of anger. "She's 7, Mildred. Art isn't about perfection, it's about expression." "Well," Mildred replied, her voice dripping with condescension, "I suppose that explains a lot about your decorating choices." That night I wrote furiously in my journal, my hand cramping from the effort. Day 15. Mildred criticized Emily's art. "I can't let this continue. I need to talk to Paul." But every time I tried to broach the subject with Paul, Mildred seemed to materialize, steering the conversation away. It was as if she had a sixth sense for any threat to her position. Things came to a head during Sunday dinner. Mildred had insisted on cooking, filling the house with the aroma of pot roast, Paul's favorite. "This is delicious, Mom," Paul said between bites. "Just like I remember." Mildred beamed. "Well, I always say there's no substitute for a mother's touch in the kitchen." I felt my cheeks burn. "I cook for this family every day, Mildred." "Of course you do, dear," she replied, patting my hand. "And it's adequate. But there's a certain warmth that comes from a grandmother's cooking, don't you think, Paul?" Before Paul could answer, Emily piped up, "I like Mommy's cooking better." The silence that followed was deafening. Mildred's face darkened, and for a moment I saw a flash of the woman behind the mask, cold, calculating, and furious. "Well," Mildred said, her voice tight, "children often don't know what's best for them. That's why they need proper guidance." The look she gave me left no doubt as to who she thought was failing to provide that guidance. Later that night, I sat at the kitchen table, my journal open before me. The house was quiet, everyone else asleep. I wrote feverishly, pouring out weeks of frustration and fear. "I can't take this anymore. Mildred is poisoning our family. She undermines me at every turn, criticizes Emily and Paul. Paul can't see what's happening, or won't see. I feel like I'm going crazy. Am I overreacting? Am I the problem?" A floorboard creaked behind me. I whirled around to see Mildred standing in the doorway, her eyes fixed on my journal. "Trouble sleeping, dear?" she asked, her voice honey-sweet but her eyes cold. I slammed the journal shut. "Just finishing up some work." Mildred's gaze lingered on the book. "You know, Jenny, a happy home requires honesty. Secrets can be so destructive." As she turned to leave, her meaning was clear. This was a threat. I looked down at my journal, my lifeline these past weeks. I knew I had a choice to make. I could stay silent, let Mildred continue her slow takeover of our lives, or I could fight back, risks be damned. With shaking hands, I opened the journal again and wrote one final line. "Tomorrow, I tell Paul everything." The biting winter wind whipped around me as I fumbled with my keys, my fingers numb from the cold. It was well past midnight, and I'd been stuck at work dealing with a last-minute crisis. All I wanted was to crawl into bed and forget this day had ever happened. But as I tried to insert the key into the lock, I realized something was wrong. The key wouldn't turn. Frowning, I tried again. Then again. Nothing. "No, no," I muttered, panic rising in my chest. I rang the doorbell, praying Paul would hear it. Silence. I pulled out my phone, dialing Paul's number. Straight to voicemail. With shaking hands, I tried Mildred's number. It rang once, twice, 3 times before going to voicemail. "Mildred, it's Jenny. I'm locked out. Please, if you hear this, let me in. It's freezing out here." I pounded on the door, my desperation growing with each unanswered knock. "Paul, Mildred, anyone." The neighbor's lights flicked on and I felt a flash of embarrassment, but it was quickly overshadowed by the realization that I was truly locked out of my own home. As I huddled on the porch trying to shield myself from the wind, a memory surfaced. Mildred's words from earlier that day, "You know, Jenny, a happy home requires honesty. Secrets can be so destructive." Had she done this on purpose? Changed the locks to teach me a lesson? No, I thought. Even Mildred wouldn't go that far. Would she? Hours passed, each minute an eternity in the frigid night. I tried calling again and again, leaving increasingly frantic messages. I paced the porch, trying to keep warm, my mind racing with worst-case scenarios. What if something had happened to them? What if there had been a carbon monoxide leak and they were all unconscious inside? Or what if Mildred had convinced Paul to take Emily and leave? As dawn broke, casting a pale light over the frost-covered lawn, I heard movement inside the house. Hope surged through me as I rushed to the door, knocking frantically. The door swung open, revealing Mildred in her robe, a look of exaggerated surprise on her face. "Jenny? What on earth are you doing out here?" I pushed past her into the warmth of the house, my entire body shaking. "I've been locked out all night." "Didn't you hear me knocking? Didn't you get my messages?" Mildred's face was a mask of innocence. "Oh dear, I must have forgotten to unlock the door when I went to bed, and you know how I turn off my phone at night, doctor's orders, for my blood pressure." Paul appeared at the top of the stairs, looking confused. "Jenny, what's going on?" Before I could respond, Mildred jumped in. "Poor Jenny got locked out last night. She must have lost her key." "I didn't lose my key," I snapped, my patience finally shattering. "The locks have been changed." Paul frowned. "What? No, they haven't." "Yes, they have," I insisted. "My key didn't work." Mildred skeet sympathetically. "Darling, you must have been so tired. Are you sure you were using the right key?" I opened my mouth to argue, but the words died on my lips as I saw the doubt in Paul's eyes. He believed her. Of course he did. I need to lie down," I mumbled, pushing past them both and heading upstairs. In our bedroom, I collapsed onto the bed, exhaustion and despair washing over me. I could hear Paul and Mildred talking in low voices downstairs, no doubt discussing my confusion. As I lay there, shivering despite the warmth of the house, I realized something with stark clarity. I wasn't safe here. Not anymore. Not with Mildred's growing influence and Paul's willful blindness. I sat up, a new determination filling me. I couldn't let this continue. I couldn't let Mildred win. With trembling hands, I reached for my phone and dialed a number I never thought I'd use. "Sarah, it's Jenny. I need your help. Can I stay with you for a while? I'll explain everything, I promise. I can't stay here anymore." As I hung up, I knew I was at a crossroads. Stay and fight, or leave to protect myself and Emily. Either way, nothing would ever be the same again. The wind howled as I stumbled down the snow-covered street, my entire body shaking uncontrollably. I'd left the house in a daze, Sarah's promise of shelter, the only thing keeping me moving forward. But as the adrenaline wore off, the reality of my situation hit me like a freight train. I was alone, in the middle of a snowstorm with nowhere to go. My phone, nearly dead, buzzed with incoming calls from Paul. I ignored them, knowing I couldn't face him right now, not when I was this close to breaking. As I rounded a corner, the wind picked up, nearly knocking me off my feet. That's when I saw her, an elderly woman huddled against a building, barely visible under a mound of tattered blankets. "Hello?" I called out, my voice barely audible over the storm. "Are you all right?" The woman stirred, revealing a face etched with lines of hardship. Her eyes, cloudy with cataracts, struggled to focus on me. "Help," she whispered, her voice weak. "Please." Without thinking, I rushed to her side, my own problems momentarily forgotten. "I'm Jenny. What's your name?" "Alice," she managed, her teeth chattering. "So cold." I fumbled with my phone, fingers numb as I dialed 911. "Hold on, Alice, help is coming." As we waited for the ambulance, I wrapped my coat around Alice, rubbing her arms to generate warmth. She leaned into me, her frail body trembling. "Thank you," she murmured. "Most people, they just walk by." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. How many times had I walked past someone in need, too caught up in my own problems to notice? The ambulance arrived, its sirens piercing through the howling wind. As the paramedics loaded Alice into the vehicle, one of them turned to me. "Ma'am, you should come too. You're showing signs of hypothermia." I hesitated, thinking of Paul, of Emily, of the mess I'd left behind. But as another violent shiver racked my body, I nodded, climbing into the ambulance beside Alice. The warmth of the vehicle was a shock to my system. As feeling returned to my extremities, pain followed, sharp and relentless. I bit back a cry, not wanting to distress Alice further. At the hospital, we were separated. Doctors and nurses swarmed around me, their voices a blur of medical jargon. I caught snippets: severe hypothermia, risk of frostbite, need to warm her slowly. As they worked, my mind drifted. I thought of Mildred, of her smug face as she opened the door this morning. I thought of Paul, his doubt clear in his eyes. And I thought of Emily, innocent and unaware of the turmoil tearing our family apart. Hours passed in a haze of warming blankets and IV fluids. When I finally regained full awareness, I found Paul sitting beside my bed, his face a mask of worry and confusion. "Jenny," he breathed, reaching for my hand. "What happened? Why did you leave?" I opened my mouth to explain, but the words wouldn't come. How could I make him understand the depth of Mildred's manipulation? How could I convey the constant fear, the erosion of my self-worth? Before I could formulate a response, the door opened. Mildred swept in, her face a perfect picture of concern. "Oh, Jenny, dear." She cooed, moving to my other side. "We've been so worried. What were you thinking, running off like that?" I felt my chest tighten, panic rising. This was wrong. She shouldn't be here. This was my safe space, away from her influence. "Get out," I whispered, my voice hoarse. Paul frowned. "Jenny, she's just trying to help." "No," I said, louder this time. "Get her out. I can't do this anymore." Mildred's face hardened, the mask slipping for just a moment. "Now, Jenny, you're clearly not thinking straight. Perhaps it's best if we—" "I said get out!" I screamed, surprising even myself with the force of my outburst. As nurses rushed in, alerted by the commotion, I felt something inside me snap. Tears streamed down my face as I turned to Paul, my voice breaking. "I need you to listen to me. Really listen. Because if you don't, if you can't see what's happening, I don't think our marriage will survive this." In that moment, with Mildred's icy glare boring into me and Paul's bewildered expression, I knew we had reached a point of no return. Everything I had built, everything I loved, hung in the balance. And I was terrified. The hospital room felt suffocating as I clutched my journal, its pages filled with months of pain and frustration. Paul sat beside me, his face a mix of confusion and concern. Mildred hovered near the door, her presence a looming shadow. "Jenny," Paul said softly, "please, tell me what's going on." I took a deep breath, my hands shaking. "I've been keeping this journal, documenting everything that's happened since your mother moved in." Mildred's eyes narrowed, but she remained silent. "Everything?" Paul asked, his brow furrowed. I nodded, opening the journal to the first entry. "From the very beginning, Paul, the constant criticism, the undermining, the manipulation." As I read aloud, Paul's expression shifted from disbelief to shock, then to anger. Mildred's face remained impassive, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. "That's preposterous," Mildred interjected when I paused. "Jenny, dear, you're clearly confused. The stress of work, motherhood, it's understandable that you might misinterpret things." I felt a surge of anger. "Misinterpret? Like how you misinterpreted locking me out of my own home?" Paul's head snapped up. "What? Oh, for heaven's sake," Mildred scoffed. "I told you I simply forgot to unlock the door. It was an honest mistake." "No," I said firmly, turning to Paul. "Locks were changed. My key didn't work." Paul looked between us, confusion evident on his face. "Mom, is this true?" Mildred's mask slipped for a moment, revealing a flash of panic. "Of course not. Paul, surely you don't believe these wild accusations?" I pressed on, my voice gaining strength. "What about Emily's artwork? The constant criticism of my parenting? The way you've been trying to control our finances?" Paul's face hardened. "Mom, what is she talking about?" Mildred's demeanor changed instantly. Gone was the sweet, concerned mother-in-law. In her place stood a woman with cold, calculating eyes. "You ungrateful little," she hissed, taking a step towards me. "After everything I've done for this family?" Paul stood up, placing himself between us. "Mom, that's enough." "Enough?" Mildred laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "I'm just getting started. You think your precious wife is so perfect? Let me tell you about the times I've caught her snooping through my things, or the way she undermines my relationship with Emily." I felt my heart racing. "That's not true. Paul, you can't believe her." The tension in the room was palpable. Nurses peered in, drawn by the rising voices. "I think," Paul said slowly, "that we all need to calm down and—" "Calm down," Mildred shrieked. "I will not be treated this way in my own home." "It's not your home." I shot back, my patience finally snapping. "It's ours. And you've been trying to destroy it from the moment you arrived." Mildred lunged forward, her hand raised. Paul caught her wrist, his face a mask of shock. "Mom, what are you doing?" Security guards burst into the room, alerted by the commotion. As they escorted Mildred out, her mask completely shattered, revealing the bitter, angry woman beneath. "You'll regret this," she spat. "Both of you." As the door closed behind her, silence fell. Paul sank into the chair, his head in his hands. "I'm so sorry, Jenny," he whispered. I should have known." I reached out, taking his hand. We both wanted to believe the best in her. He looked up, his eyes filled with pain and regret. "What do we do now?" Before I could answer, a nurse entered. "Mrs. Thompson, there's someone here to see you. An elderly woman named Alice. She's quite insistent." I felt a glimmer of hope. Alice, the woman I'd helped in the storm, had come to see me. Perhaps there was still kindness in the world, still a chance for healing. As Paul helped me to my feet, I knew we were at a crossroads. The truth was out, but the real work was just beginning. Could we rebuild what Mildred had tried so hard to destroy? Or would the cracks in our family prove too deep to mend? With Alice waiting and Paul by my side, I took a deep breath and stepped into the hospital corridor, ready to face whatever came next. The day Mildred left our house for good was both a relief and a heartache. Paul stood in the doorway, his face a mask of determination, as he watched his mother's car disappear down the street. I held Emily close, her small hand clutching mine tightly. "Is Grandma really gone?" Emily asked, her voice small and uncertain. I knelt down, meeting her eyes. "Yes, sweetheart, but remember, sometimes people we love can make mistakes. It doesn't mean we stop loving them, but we need to protect ourselves too." Paul turned to us, his eyes glistening. "We're going to be okay," he said, pulling us both into a hug. "We're stronger together." In the weeks that followed, we worked to rebuild our family. It wasn't easy. There were nights when Paul would wake up, haunted by memories of his childhood and the realization of who his mother truly was. I'd hold him, whispering words of comfort and reassurance. One sunny afternoon, as we were having a picnic in the park, I spotted a familiar face. "Alice," I called out, waving to the elderly woman I'd helped that fateful night. Alice's face lit up with recognition. She made her way over to us, leaning heavily on a cane. "Jenny? Oh, it's so wonderful to see you." We invited Alice to join us, and as we shared our meal, she told us her story. She'd been homeless for years after losing her job and her savings to a scam. The night I found her was the night she'd given up hope. "But you, Jenny," Alice said, her eyes shining, "you reminded me that there's still kindness in this world." Paul squeezed my hand, pride evident in his eyes. Emily, fascinated by Alice's stories, peppered her with questions about her life. As we said goodbye to Alice that day, promising to visit her at the shelter where she was staying, I felt a warmth spread through me. This was what family truly meant. Not blood ties or obligation, but love, compassion, and support. Over the next few months, we made it a point to visit Alice regularly. We brought her home-cooked meals, warm clothes, and most importantly, companionship. Emily would read to her, Paul would help with small repairs at the shelter, and I found in Alice the mother figure I'd always longed for. One evening, as we sat around our dinner table, Alice now a regular guest, I looked at the faces of my loved ones and felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. "I want to make a toast," I said, raising my glass. "To family, not just the one we're born into, but the one we choose and nurture." Paul smiled, his eyes meeting mine. "To second chances and new beginnings." "To kindness," Alice added, her voice wavering with emotion. "To love," Emily chimed in, giggling as she clinked her juice glass with ours. As laughter filled the room, I realized that the ordeal with Mildred, painful as it was, had taught us all valuable lessons. It had shown us the importance of honesty, the strength found in vulnerability, and the healing power of compassion. Later that night, as Paul and I lay in bed, he turned to me. "Jenny," he said softly, "I don't think I ever properly thanked you." "For what?" I asked, curious. "For not giving up on us, for fighting for our family when I was too blind to see what was happening. You're the strongest person I know." I felt tears prick my eyes. "We're strong together," I whispered, echoing his words from weeks ago. As I drifted off to sleep, I thought about the journey we'd been on. The pain, the fear, the doubt. It had all led us here, to this moment of peace and understanding. We'd faced our demons, confronted hard truths, and come out stronger on the other side. And as for Mildred, I hoped that someday she'd find the peace and love she so desperately needed. But for now, our family, expanded and strengthened by adversity, was whole. We had each other and we had Alice, a living reminder that it's never too late for a new chapter, a fresh start, a chosen family. In the quiet of the night, with Paul's steady breathing beside me and the knowledge that Emily slept peacefully down the hall, I felt a profound sense of contentment. We had weathered the storm and emerged into the sunlight, stronger and more united than ever before.